All right, George, you ready for this?
Welcome. Hey, we are back better than ever. We got a new face here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so excited to be here with this fantastic audience. I see y'all already in the chat. But if you haven't noticed, this is not my friend Ben that's normally on the side of me. This is the one and only Christopher Lynn. Christopher, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience for those who may not know you? But I want to say first, thank you for joining today. Thank you for being part of this live stream. And I'm so excited for everything that we have jam-packed here in the next 2.5 hours.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. This is one of my favorite things to do, so I'm excited to sit alongside you and join everybody. For those of you who don't know, I'm Christopher Lind. I'm a former Chief Learning Officer and now focus on digital transformation for organizations with just as an independent consultant. So this is going to be fun. I love the work we do. So we got a jam-packed lineup too.
Yes. So let's get right into it. Just because we have so many great speakers and panels that we're going to be sharing today. As you know, this is the Development Gap, and we are here to really encourage, inspire, and connect you, and really focus on the topic of how to really grow your talent, but also drive better performance. And so a lot of great things here, but as always, we want to first thank our lovely sponsors that are here. Christopher, we have WeLearn. We have Go On, and then if you're at DevLearn, and for those who may be watching virtually or attending, a big announcement that just happened, ETU is now Skillwell. And so that's some fun, exciting things that you're going to be hearing today. We're so excited about that. So we want to say thank you to our wonderful, wonderful sponsors. Once again, WeLearn, Go On, ETU, for helping us be a part of this event and partnering with us as well. Some of the quick announcements that we love to talk about, just some housekeeping. We are still going to be giving away some stuff. We got tons of giveaways. We're going to give away some books from both Ben and I. So keep engaging in the audience. Keep the conversations going. Make sure you like and you're sharing this to your network.
We'll be watching. That's how we determine.
Watching. Yes.
That's right.
And so stay engaged. Share the stream with your network. That helps us out a lot. As always, SHRM and HRCI credits at the end of the stream. We'll post these up. It'll be the last thing that we do. It'll be at the end of the stream. We'll have those up on the slide as well as we return. Christopher and I will be ending the day sharing some of the things, like our key takeaways, some highlights, and what to look forward to in 2026. And so we'll share those credits at the end. And then live stream. Listen, these are approximate times. This is live. Sometimes I may get excited. Ben's not here to take control, so we got Christopher and I. You never know what's going to happen for this first. Christopher's already in love with some of the buttons. He's on the back end of this program that we use, and so he's teaching me all these different gadgets, and so we're so excited about that. We got people from all over once again, so we want to thank y'all for joining in. Shout out to all our HR Summer School lunch break members that are joining us. North Dakota, Texas, Florida, Wisconsin, Ohio people. We got teams over in Ghana as well, Indiana, North Carolina. So all those who are members joining in for this special edition of lunch break with everybody else in our network, we want to say shout out to those as well. We have some information about HR Summer School lunch breaks for those who are interested in that as well. We want to say thank you to the speakers. Christopher, thank you for being here and joining in, my friend. We got a great lineup as we've been promoting for here, and some people are going to be live. We're going to have a special, our second session is going to be live at DevLearn.
That's right.
One and only professor.
Right from the showroom floor.
Live from the showroom floor. So we're hoping to do that just in case. We did pre-record, just in case we have an issue. You never know with technology, but we're going to be ready in and out of season. So this, Ben and I are putting this agenda together with our team. And Christopher, this is the agenda that we have. What's something that really sticks out to you that you're excited about?
So I'm actually excited having seen all the preview events. I'm looking forward to actually all of them, but I think it's going to be really fun also to hear some of the live insights from the event, because I think that's one of the things we're experimenting with, is seeing how do we combine all of this stuff together into a jam-packed event. And I don't know that I have a favorite. I'm terrible at favorites in general. If you said, Christopher, what's your favorite? I would say I don't have any. I enjoy everything. I know that's a cop-out. It sounds like it, but I promise it's not.
I'll let you slide on that one. Well, let's get right into it, Christopher. Let's jump right into our first session. This first session is going to be phenomenal. You're going to be excited about this. This is one of our panel sessions that we're going to have today with Al D and Julie Veloz. And so without further ado, Christopher, let's jump into this first session, my friend.
All right, let's roll it.
Everyone, I'm so glad you're here with us today for this incredible live stream. We've already heard a little bit from Christopher and from George about the importance of learning today and some of the things that we're thinking about getting into this bigger conversation. And I'm so excited to kick off our event with this incredible keynote panel with Al and Julie. We're going to dive into some of the things that are changing, some of the things that you need to know, and we're really going to get some insights from these two leaders that I highly respect for how we can make development our cornerstone and our focus going forward. So I'm so excited both of you are here with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Good to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get into some of the good things we're going to be talking about today, Julie, I'll start with you. Would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Veloz. I go by Julie. I have been in the talent space for 25 years. I can't believe that that's a thing. And I've had the privilege really of being able to lead different centers of excellence in the world of talent space, inclusion, and cross-cultural marketing. Again, I go by Julie, but sometimes I go by mom and bro. I That has been the new thing now. I lead global learning and development at Edelman, really shaping how we grow, lead, and bring culture as part of the learning in everything that we do.
Wonderful. So glad you're here. Mucho gusto. How about that? So excited to have you. Al, tell us your story.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Al D. I'm the founder of the Edge of Work, which is my talent and leadership development consulting practice. I also host a podcast and write a newsletter in the same name. So I spend the majority of my days working with organizations to develop their leaders so they can navigate this kind of complex and changing workplace. And in addition to spending my time around leadership development, I also spend a fair amount of time talking with folks like Ben and Julie and people across the talent and learning and HR ecosystem to better understand what's new and next and what's top of mind for the people who are developing people. So it's great to be here with both of you.
Excellent. Hey, we're gonna have a blast. Lots of good conversation ahead, and I know the audience is excited to have both of you here with us today. So, one thing I want to start off with is I always like getting to the why behind people do what they do, and so I know that each of you already in your conversation have started sharing, hey, listen, this is a passion for me. This is something that I deeply care about. You're talking about how we develop people and why that matters so much. And I want to hear why that's a passion. Why, of all things you could be doing, why is this your thing? Julie, you want to start us off?
I will. I thank you for the question. I think for me is I'm living proof of what happens when someone takes the time to invest in your potential. And I think it's important because sometimes you don't have the language to claim it for yourself. So there comes this person that says, like, I see something in this person. And that's how I knew I wanted to be in learning and development. I wanted to make sure that people had that person to be the advocate for them because I do believe that opportunity shouldn't be a privilege. It should really be a practice. It should be everybody should have, in a way, opportunities should be as democratized as possible so that people can grow, that they have the confidence and they have the possibility. Again, I am a firm believer that if you grow someone, you don't just change their job, you change their trajectory, which is what happened with me when someone took that opportunity. Even when I was in before college, horrible grades, Ben. I was working 32 hours a week, but someone looked at my resume, my college application, and they were like, I think I see something in this person. And if it wasn't for that one person, I would have never gone to college. That completely changed my trajectory. So how could I not give the opportunity to those people that are working as part of the organizations that I'm representing?
I think about, I heard someone say at one time when I was talking about the importance of having leaders who do that and see that in you. This lady said, you know what? The best way I can describe it is I had a leader that every time she took a step up the ladder, she reached back behind her to pull someone else up. And that visual of, yes, someone doesn't just believe and I can make it, but I can help someone else make it. I love that idea. Al, how about you? Why, of all the things you could be doing, you think about learning, developing, helping people to upskill, why is that a priority for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the theme of Julie's story that resonates with me is just certainly the personal connection in terms of what I've been able to be a part of myself in my life. But if I reflect a little bit more deeply and think about just growing up as a kid, I think like many kids, I was into sports. And when I looked at my favorite sports teams and the teams that I was on, one of the things that I could find within them is that the collective was always better because there was either a coach or someone who was enabling them in order to elevate to their potential. And that just allowed me to pursue a lot of activities and experiences where I was both in collective efforts like teams or organizations, as well as where I was able to serve or participate in roles where I was coaching, facilitating, training, et cetera. Now, I didn't have the language for it then, and I would then later learn more of the fundamentals of all these things. And so that always really stuck with me. And I would just say the last thing that I would say on this is that as someone who has always been curious about work in careers and has always looked at work in careers and studied them and been curious about them, we spend a heck of a lot of time of our lives on them, right? And what a privilege, what an opportunity to play a role in enabling people to maximize them for themselves and in turn to be able to hopefully do positive things at the organization, but in their communities with their families and the like.
Oh my goodness, such a great set of answers. Oh my goodness, I love it. So you used the phrase there, you talk about elevating someone to their potential, Al. And the question I want to ask you next, this feels weird to me. I'm going to answer it first because I feel like that's an opportunity. Sure. And then I want to give it back to you and let you guys both answer it. So one of the things that I feel like it's easy for us to do in this world of learning and developing people is it's really easy to think about what are we creating to give them? What are we creating to enable them? What jobs are they doing? We don't always pause and actually see that potential and think about how we can elevate that in them. When we look at the actual data we have, workers tell us more than anything, I want someone to see me, not just for who I am or the job I do, but for what I could be in the future. And I think that's one of the things that I want to call out in this today as we're going through these conversations is, can we see that potential? Because if we don't do that or help the managers that work with these people to see that potential, then they're going to assume someone else will see that in them and they'll go find an employer, they'll go find a manager somewhere else to do that. So this next question I want to ask you is, what do you think we aren't doing enough as employers? We're not doing enough of this practice, this strategy, this thing around development. What's something that we should be doing more of? Asking both ways. Al, start us off. What's something we do more of when it comes to this to be better at developing our people?
Yeah. So the first thing that really came to mind on this is that whether it's learning and development or whether it's HR in your organization, depending on the size of it, I think the first thing is that there's an opportunity to make sure that learning isn't just the job or the focus of learning or HR. From a law and numbers perspective, there are far more people in an organization that don't work in HR or learning than there are within them. And so if you actually want more development to happen, at some point, you're going to have to find other people in other pockets who are going to help carry the mantle to ensure that it happens. The good news about this is that we also know that the formal kind of learning programs and experiences and things that you were mentioning, those were most likely only meant to be a sliver of how an effective learning strategy that drives business goals was supposed to be. And so the opportunity then is that because all those other people who don't work in learning are actually spending far more time with the people every day, there is an opportunity that's there. And we know that learning is far more than a programmer experience. And so I think the opportunity and maybe what we aren't doing and maybe what we could be doing is how do we activate other people to be developers of talent when we ourselves cannot do all of that work? What are the systems? What are the processes? What are the cultural enablers that can enable that development to happen when your learning team or your HR team isn't in the room? And I think that is where an opportunity lies.
Well, you said it's not just HR's job over there a minute ago. Julie's like grinning ear to ear when you said that. What were you thinking, Julie?
Seeing that outset, everything. It really is. It's like there's an organizational challenge. Give it to learning and development, and not even taking that step back and doing a little bit of that analysis. That is this really a training thing, or is it bigger? Is it a culture thing? So I think that was where my mind was. I was like, yes, I'll preach. Say it to those in the back. And then I was also thinking about and I'm just calling back on something that Al said about curiosity. I think traditional L&D programs, I think we focus so much on teaching skills, but we need to think about teaching courage. We need to think about the psychological safety, about teaching trust, about really creating that feedback culture. And especially in this world of artificial ... we have to continue to teach how to be distinctively human, right? There is such a need to make sure that we don't lose the humanity. And I think that that's where I'm thinking about, how do we create spaces and places where automation is taking a percentage of a task? So how do I upskill my people? That is where my mind is, not to just teach skills, but to continue to build that curiosity.
So I want to double click on that one a little bit. So
Sure.
let's say someone heard you say that out there in the audience right now, like, yes, completely agree, Julie. We should be teaching courage. We should be teaching about how to build trust. Those things matter so much. The next question is, okay, how? How do we do that? Is it situations? Is it putting them with a coach? Is it doing something collaborative? Talk about what that could look like. We're going to try to build some of those human skills.
Yeah, for sure. I think about some of the work that I've been doing lately on feedback. And I know feedback, there's so many books and models and places and spaces. But one of the things that we were looking at in terms of like a feedback culture is a lot of these models stop in a very critical spot in that feedback process, which is after you've had a situation where someone has had a good performance or a performance that you need to redirect. We just tell the person, okay, you did this thing and this was the effect. Don't do it again. Thank you so much. Right. And there is this need to support, but also to, in a way, reconstruct that relationship that's broken. So that's something that when we're thinking about feedback that we look at in one of these models, which is how do you leave your talent? So that helps builds that psychological safety. So that's like super, super important. In terms of how to build more of that community, what are the culture moments that you're having in your organization that are really driving? Because again, it's not just learning and development's responsibility, but what are you doing from a culture perspective that is allowing people to see, oh, we can fail here and fail quickly and safely so we could be more innovative. So it's not just like I'm going to create this feedback program or this culture class. It's what are the moments in culture, the big C culture, that are actually signaling to the organization that they can continue to be curious, that they can continue to be innovative, that they can take risk because the risk tolerance is higher. I think that's for me where I think about not just programs, but actual thinking about the culture and testing out how people can grow.
What that reminds me of what Al said earlier when he was talking about this is so much bigger than just helping them in their work because people's lives are changed by this. I think both of you sort of touched on that in the very beginning. We opened this up. Al, anything you would add to that around developing some of those things? It's not like teaching you a programming language where I can give you a feedback loop that says, hey, that was wrong, let's fix that. Like some of these things are harder. How do I show someone how to build trust when they haven't had to do that or they've had their trust broken and so they're coming from a different place and they need that psychological safety like Julie's mentioning. Anything to add?
Yeah, I was at a conference last week, and the podcaster and Jay Shetty, he had a line on stage where he said, "We repeat what we reward," right? And
Mhm.
so if we want to create that curiosity as something that we want to see in this organization, well, one of the very first things we can do is to start rewarding it. Humans are reliably predictable in the sense that they will always act in the best of their self-interests, right? And that's a survival mechanism, right? And so if we see that it is safe to take risks or to be curious or to wander, then we will have the confidence that we ourselves should do that. Or and the same for that matter, I think same thing works for feedback in terms of if we see that this is a company that doesn't punish people when they provide constructive feedback and that rewards it or that it models it. Well, as a leader, that makes me a little bit more incentivized to do it. And I think the top line out of this is that for any of these things, they have to be systemic in nature in terms of really thinking about them from the cultural values and norms, the behaviors of leaders, the talent and nature of processes, right? That we have, right? And to broader workflows in the organization. And so it's a little bit more than just as Julie said, it's more than just a program. It really has to be systemic in nature.
Plugged into the culture, something that's felt, not just seen. Like all those sorts of things start to come out there where this can't just be another, oh great, L&D's here, they've got another program. I'll endure this until I can get back to work, right? Get back to the normal way of doing things. Like, no, this is a part of how we are going to be going forward. It's a rhythm of life, and it's going to be plugged into all these touch points. Al, rewards, right? Recognition, other things wrapped into this. So it's not just a thing that you can hold your breath for a week or two and it'll pass by. No, this is a part of how we're going to do this going forward. I really like both of you bringing those two things together. The only other thing I'll throw in there is, Julie, when you talked about reconstructing relationships and how do we do this in a way that matters, I flash back to a piece of research I saw a couple years ago where it just talked about the importance of if I'm going to be giving feedback to someone in a way that they're going to receive it, it's going to start with the assurance that I'm here for you. I know you can do this. I believe in you. And
Yes.
here's what I'm seeing that needs to be changed. Here's
Yes.
what I expect from you. I'm going to make sure and lay that out, but I've got to show you first that this isn't just me wagging a finger, but I'm your biggest champion. I'm your biggest cheerleader. I have got your back. And here's what I know you can accomplish given this sort of motivation and support from me. So
Yeah, no, it's like turning from switching the hats from manager to coaching, right? We have to be able to switch that hat. And I think that you spelled it out perfectly.
excellent. Excellent. All right. So We've talked about some of the things that matter here and some of the things that we could do better as a function, as organizations. So I want to switch gears a little bit. So the research that we've done around skills training, things like that, one of the things that shows up is what sort of both of you hinted at earlier on is the broader impact of this. It's not just about putting a course in the hands of an employee or building a new skill that they can use, but they feel like they get a better grip on their life overall. One of the data points that came in even back during the pandemic was when someone from a company gives me the right types and amounts of training, they were tremendously more likely to say that their company helped them in this critical moment to just navigate life and all the stuff that was going on around that. And that was my first inkling that we sometimes get heads down focused on the tasks and the activities and things we're held accountable for to the business. And we forget that when we're helping someone do this, it has this broader impact. And so I'd love to hear from you. Let's start with you, Julie. When I share stats like that or some sorts of things, does that surprise you or are you like totally expected it and here's why?
Absolutely, 100%. So very quickly, two nuggets. One, I'm a professor and I teach business communications and business in action, which is an entrepreneur skillship type of course. And what's really interesting is as students have moved forward in their career, they come back and say, Julie, that one thing you taught me, it actually, I'm still using it in my real work. And I find that to be funny because what we teach doesn't just stay in the office. Like you don't leave the office and all of a sudden all of the learning and development investment is just gone away. It shows up in relationships, it shows up in your confidence, your ability to navigate change, and really even to protect your peace and your space. And learning gives people agency. And I think when you have agency, you give people that sense of control, that hope, and that dignity. So and I always tell people, whatever you learn here, in any instance of my career, you will take with you forever. Learning does not escape your brain. And I say that because it's something that I believe and I'm super passionate about.
Control, hope, and dignity. Did I get those three right?
Full hope and dignity.
I like
Yes.
that. I like that's a quotable quote right there from Julie. Okay.
Thank
Al, how
you.
about you? When I share that, again, you sort of teased into this at the very beginning in your own intro, so probably not a surprise to you, but talk about what you think, what you see around that sort of impact that learning can have more broadly for people.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think for starters, part of why the three of us are on this call today is because of learning, right? We literally wouldn't be here if we hadn't done that. And in some cases, part of that is just the general survival mechanism, right? In terms of having to adapt and evolve to be able to meet the moment of whatever we're in. But for me, it speaks to just going back to psychology 101, self-determination theory, right? In terms of the ways in which, being able to drive towards innate and psychological needs of autonomy, of mastery, and of relatedness, right? When we know that those needs are met, that leads to some of the things that I think, Ben, that you were mentioning in the research in terms of feeling more motivated, feeling overall healthy, and being a little bit more at peace in our lives. And I think the other kind of delineation in there is that how do you get people to rise to their potential, right? Like, how do you get people to be proactive about what they're curious about or learning? Well, there will always be some people who just, they just do that, right? But the reality of it is that that's not going to be everyone in your organization. And so I think that when the reality of it is like most people don't go to work to do a bad job, right? Like no one shows up. It's like, you know what? I really hope that I do a bad job.
Phone it in
But
today, Al. Phone it in.
right, but like the reality of it is that I think when we can start to think about some of those just core psychological needs as like human beings and what helps them stay motivated or working towards things, learning is one of those things that really does check the box against mastery, against autonomy, against connection, the social piece that comes with it. And so I think that for me at a basic level is where I see the potential and possibility with some of the research that you mentioned.
Might be a little challenging for like a hot second.
Mhm.
Not to anything Al or Ben you said, but just I think when I say classic learning and development leaders, I think we need to also challenge the way that we are putting learning and development and instruction together. Obviously, we
Mm.
all know 70,
Yeah.
20, 10. You may use it in your work life or you may not. But the traditional brick and mortar, the traditional ways of learning are just not cutting it anymore. Like brick and mortar will always have its value, but I think us as learning leaders need to challenge the way. I say meet people where they need to be met instead of like trying to just say, you know what, I need you for 4 hours. We have to be a little bit more nimble and more fluid in the way that we action learning, and really work with our managers to make sure that that on the job is a little bit more programmatic than just happenstance. So just wanted to add that as you were talking, I was like, yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I mean, I think I'm drawn to, Ben, one of your colleagues in the analyst space, Danny Johnson over at Red Thread Research, maybe a couple months ago, just threw a kind of a hypothetical question out there, which was, how would learning happen in an organization if L&D went away? And it was a really fascinating question because to Julie, to your point, I mean, the maybe the supposition of the question was what you just said, which is if let's just say hypothetically that learning wasn't meeting the moment, or the organization didn't find a need for it, and the team, the physical team, the org structure, the org chart went away, what would happen? And there was a lot of really thoughtful answers in there, but I think one of my favorite ones was someone who said, yeah, it would happen. It's just, but just L&D wouldn't be there. And but the point of it is to, I think, to what Julie's saying, is that people adapt, right? Or they do, because again, because they have to, right? And so the question becomes, do you want to play a part in how that learning happens? And do you want to create spaces for that to happen, which will include some of what you do and may look very different from how we traditionally would have done it. But I think that is the adaptation, just as very much that we want to create leaders and organizations that are adaptive, that are able to evolve how they think and work. That is, I think, the opportunity for where we sit right now for us who work in this profession to do the exact same thing that we're probably asking our leaders themselves to do.
Thinking, do you want your people to grow and develop in spite of what you're doing, Julie, if you're doing it this more traditional way, or do you want them to do it because of what you're providing them, the structure, the resources, the tools, the culture you're building around this from a learning perspective? You want them to exceed and excel and succeed because of those sorts of things, and or in spite of them. So how do we put the right things around them? The only thing I'll throw in there is both of you have touched on culture as part of this. And one of the things that we see in the data, when we ask the workforce, what does flexibility mean to you? One of the things that shows up there isn't just the when I get to work and things like that, but how I grow is a big part of that. So if we're just imposing upon them, here is your learning, take it or leave it, and that's it, some things they have to learn, period, right? Not a single one of us is like, I can't wait to take that ethics class again this year like I took last year and the previous 10 years. We have to. But for other things in there are things that we can put together that give them opportunities, the autonomy to step into that and to learn in a way that excites them and helps them develop a skill that, again, one of you said this a minute ago, it's not firewalled off from the rest of their life. They might apply this when they're volunteering for a ministry or doing something else in their personal life, but they've learned this skill at work because it's important enough for us to be providing that for them. Oh, gosh. Okay. So I have one more question for us here before we start to close to wrap up, because I want to spend another hour and a half with both of you, but I know we have to be respectful of everybody's time. So Al, I'm going to start with you. We've talked through some great topics today. We've given some good ground, some great one-liners from both of you too, which has been incredible. You have a chance right now to give some advice to everyone listening in about how to use what you two have shared to go and be great, to go and solve some of these problems we talked about. What advice would you give the people out there listening right now?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think anyone who's probably listening or tuning in, the reason why you're listening or tuning in is probably because you are proactive about your own learning. So first off, kudos to you. But what I would offer up, particularly in this moment, there's a quote from Albert Einstein who once said, "Yeah, you can't use an old map to explore a new world." And I feel like that serves as an opportunity for collectively for all of us, whether you're in the learning profession or in any profession for that matter, of to really reevaluate the map that you have in front of you. I just think that in this time in the workplace, now is the time where the new maps are getting charted, and this is your invitation to think about what is serving you well, what has helped serve you well to this point, but may no longer serve you well in the future, and how do you start to create that new map, just given where we are and all the change that's happening. And so that would be my piece of advice.
That was such a serious and good piece of advice. And you use like charting your path. I thought you were going to start throwing in map metaphors as you were going, like navigational metaphors. There was no GPS in there. There's no compass rose needed, but great call out there. I love that quote. You can't use an old map to explore a new world. Great call out. Julie, how about you? What advice would you give the audience here today?
Wow, how do I follow that one, right? I think for me, it's give yourself permission to be a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time, right? I think learning is not a moment in time, it's a continuum. I think investing in learning daily, as Al talked about, going back to feedback, ask for feedback like it's oxygen because it's so important. Have a system of people that will challenge you through, obviously, through love and respect, but that will challenge some of your beliefs, limiting beliefs, your growth mindset, all of that, because I think that's super important to have that quorum. And I think the last thing is be okay with not knowing. That for me has been my mantra for my own self. I'm neurodivergent, so I always have to make sure that I know, because sometimes I have to think about cues and things like that. So I'm like, Julie, be okay with not knowing, because at the end of the day, our future, our learning future, our career future, our personal life future, it belongs to learning, not knowing, right? It's about the learning, not the knowing. So that's for me, my, my piece of advice to y'all.
Well, I hear that, Julie, and I think about right now we're in a world that's information rich, but like insight poor. There's so you can get an answer to anything, but is it a wise decision? Is it the right path? Do we have the discernment to be able to make that choice or not? Like that's the thing that a lot of the tools that seem smart really aren't smart enough to tell us. And so we still have to be okay with what do I know, what do I not know? And you both like shared great one-liners. Al, great quote there. I'll give you one more from another astrophysicist. So Neil deGrasse Tyson says, as the perimeter of my, oh gosh, at the area of my knowledge grows, the perimeter of my ignorance. So is the perimeter of my ignorance. Goodness gracious, I butchered that one terribly. But basically, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. There's so much more out there. You can be endlessly curious about things and always be developing and learning. And I think that's my call out for all of you is never rest on what you know already. Be showing up to things like this, obviously, but also pushing yourself to understand more deeply how do people interact and relate to each other, and what do I know, and what's the new science on this, and how can I use that to better serve the people that are under my care as a learning leader, as an HR leader. That's my call out to all of you, I believe, as a great way to sort of cap this off. So if we're going to go give everybody a chance to connect with each of you. So Al, if someone wants to connect, wants to follow you, the Edge of Work, all the good things you're doing there, what's the best way for them to follow?
Sure. They can find me on LinkedIn. Just tell them Ben Eubank sent you and be happy to connect.
Perfect. Excellent. We'll make sure and put the link to your Substack into the chat here for the audience. How about you, Julie?
So Julie on Veloz on LinkedIn. Again, let me know if Ben didn't or didn't send you. I'll still have a conversation with you. And my website, julieveloz.com.
Perfect. Okay. We'll make sure you get both those links into the chat here so the audience can reach out, can connect. And again, say hello, tell them something that you heard today that was inspiring to you. I want to thank both of you for spending the time with us, for bringing your passion, your insight. This has been such a great way to kick the event off. I know the audience is going to be fired up and ready for all the good things to come. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming up from Christopher and George. Hope you have a good rest of your event, and I'll see you shortly.
Awesome. Well,
There we
Christopher,
go.
what an awesome session to start off with. What were some of the things that you took off? I always feel like when Ben and I are talking, Christopher, I always have like a one-liner, but man, Al and Julie both they were hitting us.
Yeah,
with
there were a lot of quotables. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I think one of the things that
listening
to this, and especially in the work I do, I think more now than ever, this is extremely important. Because with this whole push of AI and all these things, like there's a lot of instability that people are wrestling with. And as a result, there's a lot of people who they're like afraid if I develop other people, they might be coming for me. If I grow and develop others, they might come take something from me. And it's not a zero-sum game. When we develop and grow other people, we can grow along with it. And I think that's something that it's getting lost right now because of just this fear of missing out that seems to be so prevalent. And so I think that to me, as I listened to all these things, was like, yes. And we can't just nod and smile and go, yeah, okay, now back to business as usual.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that fear, right, of the unknown of what can happen if we're developing other people. I always love the mindset that, the lid lifter. John Maxwell used to always talk about the lid lifter, like people on your team can only go as far as you lift that lid for them.
Yeah.
And then he always turned around and said it was important for him as a leader, and this is something I grasped, that I lead Christopher as somebody that's on my team better than I first got him, which means Christopher may excel, right? Because I've given everything that I have. And so being able to share that knowledge and that wisdom and insight is so important. Ladies and gentlemen, now without further ado, this is something that we've been waiting for. This is our first, and we're about to come live to you with the one and only Professor Ben Eubanks, coming live from DevLearn Conference with Philip Miller, and we're excited. How are y'all doing today?
Hey guys, so glad to be here with you live from DevLearn. I'm here with Phil Miller from Skillwell. I'm getting used to saying that. I've been saying ETU.
Yeah, brand new.
Goodness gracious. So
you mean you haven't figured it out in like the day it's been?
Yeah. So it is now. So listen, everybody, here's your behind the scenes look at things. So for the last hour, we've been setting up and testing, and 5 minutes ago, the expo doors opened and there's a flood of people, and it is so loud here that George and Christopher are doing this, and I can't hear a single thing they're saying. So it's so wonderful.
But there's excitement. It's excitement, right?
You know what?
It's all good.
I can tell they're happy to see me and they're smiling. I'll take that. So, all right. So we're going to transition here. We're going to have a conversation about, some of the stuff that you're seeing, you're hearing. Sure. I get a chance to quiz you a little bit as not a new CEO, but like we're going to look back a little bit. So for all of you here, I know you were enjoying the session there with Al and Julie. Great setup for this conversation, because a lot of what Skillwell does, as we'll get into, helps people build skills that they're going to be able to use beyond the confines of work. And so we'll get into all that good stuff. So before we get into the conversation, take a minute and tell people who you are and what you do, Phil.
Yeah, Phil Miller. I'm the CEO of Skillwell. Now, we just launched our new brand yesterday. So if you haven't heard of Skillwell, that's okay. We were called ETU before that. We do immersive simulations that train people in immersive scenarios for soft skills, for corporate training, everything from leadership to employee development, professional development, kind of across the board. And we launched our new product yesterday as well, which is an AI-driven authoring tool for building high-quality simulations in minutes, not days and weeks and months, which is really exciting. So we're super excited to be here. It's great to chat with you again. This is, I think, the third or fourth time we've been able to connect. So,
yes, absolutely.
All good.
Well, so I had a chance yesterday to actually do the demo and was super intrigued by the ability to create something rapidly that I knew my managers would have needed back when I was an HR leader, right?
Yeah.
How many times am I trying to coach them one at a time through how to have these conversations versus saying, let's get all of our managers through this, see their specific skill gaps, which is probably my favorite part.
Correct, right. The data, to the specific, okay, they're great here. They need help here. They need to have some empathy. How do we develop that? But seeing that level so that we can actually take action on it. So it was incredible. Yeah, no, we're super excited. The beta went live yesterday. We've got clients that are already using it, testing it. We're demoing it live here in the booth. If you're here at DevLearn booth 109, stop by, get a demo. But yeah, it's really exciting to be able to take something that simulation, such a powerful form of learning, but to build really good simulations is hard. And we've been able to, I think, democratize that with this new platform. And that means that subject matter experts can build simulations rapidly and not require days, weeks, months, actors, et cetera, to make that work.
Oh, goodness. I've always hoped to get hired as an actor for that sort of thing. I've not made it yet. So maybe someone's out there's building a course and you need an actor to be your person. Hit me up. You know how to reach me. All right. So one of the things that I noted as we were prepping for this is you have been at ETU for like just at a year now.
Skillwell. Yes. I've been at Skillwell for 1 day. I've been at ETU for about a year. I've been at Skillwell for exactly 1 day.
Exactly 1 day. Yeah. With that 1 day of tenure.
Yeah, 1 day of tenure.
What are your lessons learned looking back?
Yeah, so I've actually been in learning and development for a long time. I was at Blackboard and involved in the Moodle community and a lot on the LMS side. And so this is my first time really on the simulation side. So I actually spent a lot of time in the first 6-8 months going deep into the science of learning and why different types of learning matter. Why is immersive learning important? I met and spent some time with a guy named Dr. Paul Zach, who right
there. I'm covering it.
Paul, there's a free promo for your book. Talking about the neuroscience behind why simulations are important, why for certain types of skills, simulations can actually sometimes be even better. You think of face-to-face as often the premier form of training, but the reality is there are times where simulations are actually better than face-to-face. You know, are you really going to do a role playing with your boss on the other side, or like, are you going to feel safe in if somebody asks you to role play and act in a certain way, are you actually going to be able to do that? So there are times where, whether it's psychological safety or just the ability to actually put yourself in that scenario,
simulations are actually more important. So I've learned a lot about the neuroscience of this, and a lot of that's gone into the platform that we released yesterday, which is really exciting to see.
Well, I love talking about the science of learning. I was actually send a report to one of our team members yesterday talking about this, because
great keynote yesterday, by the way, here at DevLearn about science of learning. Yeah.
Well, what's wild to me is, for anybody out there who's also sort of creeped out by the whole role play thing, like it's just hard. It's awkward. It's hard to, because when we're doing it, we know that it's a role play. We know that the other person's doing it. Like, I'm a youth sports coach. Yeah. And so when I'm like, hey, go do this thing, but act like it's live, it still isn't live because the other person knows that it isn't. And they'll respond differently. Exactly. So being able to do it in your own sort of cone of silence, your cone of safety.
Being able to repeat it multiple times if you need to, being able to get multiple test points. So all of our simulations, with the science behind it, is, you have a decision point that's tied to a skill or a competency, and you have multiple of those decision points throughout the branch scenarios. I mean, there's a lot of science behind it that shows that it's incredibly effective for learning, especially soft skills that are honestly some of the most important, but also can be hard to train.
Yes.
Hard to train on, and also hard to measure. Do they actually have this skill? And how do I track that if I'm trying to train 500, 1,000, 40,000 employees?
Yes. The more people there are going through that, the harder it is to keep up with all the things. And again, that's what I was most excited about looking at some of the reporting out on the back end. Is it's not just yes, you're good, or no, you're not. Like, as a manager, like, you're a good manager or not. We all know it's much more nuanced than that. And to be able to get into hey, you're really good at showing empathy, but when it comes to making the decision, you struggle with that, or how to communicate that vision.
Difficult conversations.
Yes, yeah. Those sorts of things you get really tripped up.
We had somebody stop by the booth yesterday that said, can we build a simulation about having a difficult budget conversation with your manager? And we plugged it into the simulation, the AI, and we generated it in real time. And I was like, what a perfect use case of, a tough conversation, something that you might want to practice a little bit, ahead of time, but you also want that safety. So it was really impressive what we were able to do. And oh, by the way, we're coming into budget season, and I'm probably getting ready to have, tough budget conversations with people. So if you're out there and you're listening and you're one of the team and we're talking budget next week, go make a simulation, and let's get ready for that conversation.
Fair warning. Go practice that before you get to do it in real life. Yeah. Well, so I think I talked to you about this before. We just finished some new research. Roberta and I will be sharing it later on the live stream. You'll see that. But one of the things that we looked at was we asked about different modalities and types of training, types of learning. And within the bigger spectrum, simulations, role play, that's one of them.
It's one. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the thing that got me is it's kind of like middle of the pack in terms of for people's preference. But when you ask them, listen to this, when you ask them, are you interested in developing a skill in a safe space, testing and trying that before you have to do it in real life? 90-something% of people said yes. And so, like, for our people we're developing, they may not call it the same thing we do, but they care about that outcome. They care about that experience, what that feels like.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, saying, oh, do you want to do simulations? I think that there's, whether it's a stereotype that, oh, that's expensive or that's hard or whatever, like, I think there's sometimes people have kind of internal defaults, which is fine. We all have those. Yes. But I think kind of breaking through that and saying, hey, really, I mean, I obviously love and have learned a lot about simulation-based learning, but we're not the only type of e-learning out there. And we know that you have learners of various types, and understanding the various types of learners is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. So, like, we're here at DevLearn, a good ecosystem for a large company of training, they're not just going to have skill. Well, they're going to have several vendors, and how you connect those together for different types of skills is actually really, really important. And we'd love to be a part of that, but we aren't always going to be a part of that. And there are some things that we're not the right solution for, because we there's different types of training that are better. So you've got to understand the need, and you've got to understand what tool is the best to meet that need.
Yes. When you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, or whatever.
Exactly. That's just silly. That's silly. Yeah.
There are some things I like that you focused earlier on this. I hate calling them soft skills, call them human skills, right?
Yeah.
Because
they're very, actually, we're supposed to call them business skills, but you and I were just chatting before this. A lot of these skills that we're talking about, conflict resolution, difficult conversations, really should apply in the rest of your life as well. You were bringing up youth sports coaching and church or social life. Like, some of these things that we're training people on for their work life. Yes. We hope we hope and cross our fingers that you take the conflict resolution training that you learn in a simulation with a Skillwell platform, and you apply that, I don't know, maybe to the conversation with your wife that you need to have about the, what, I don't know, like, I hope my wife's not watching right now.
Well, I can guarantee my wife is not, but I'll say right over here behind the camera, I have a friend here, Ben Siki, who's known to the summer school community. And we were actually talking at dinner last night about this thing.
Okay.
And I said, we're talking about a parenting problem, a challenge we're having right now. And I said, you know what? I'm going to treat it like I would a manager at work. And I'm going to approach it that way versus I'm the parent, you're the kid. Listen, no, I'm going to approach it with a little more curiosity, a little more empathy, and try to see if it works. I'll report back on whether that was successful or not, or the hammer's got to come down, and it's just because Dad said so.
I've got 10-year-old triplets and a 12-year-old. So like the managing conflict and interpersonal relationships, I'm going to need my own platform I'm going to be if I type that into our platform and said, hey, build me a simulation for how to be a better parent for 10-year-old triplets and a 12-year-old, I think it would crash our system. I mean, we've done a lot of testing, but I don't think we've actually tested that use case, and I think it might break.
It would send a message to someone to come give you a hug. Yeah, like, in the middle of that,
or it would like ship you a bottle of Jack Daniels or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the right answer is, but yeah, it would not generate a simulation.
Oh, okay. So I want to come back to one of the things that you and I chatted about before was we're hearing so much conversation about skills right now as a concept, as an idea, as a strategy. But one of the first challenges that always comes up is measuring and proving and backing it up. We talked about that a little bit already, about how it's hard to do it. Like, can you code this thing? Yes or no? That was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Can you deal with people at work? Well, there's 1,000 flavors of that. Talk about measuring those skills and sort of proving that out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the first thing is really to define. One of the first things that we do when we work with clients, and one of the first things that our AI tool, Skillwell Simulate does, is it actually helps you like define those skills. I mean, before you can measure something, you actually have to define what it is you're trying to measure, right? And so while a lot of things that we think are not measurable or are not definable actually are if you break them down. Leadership, there are actually definable qualities of what it takes to be a good leader. Now, in some scenarios at some companies, they have very specific definitions where they add things to that, but there are some consistent qualities and skills that are true of leaders. And conflict resolution is another one that you brought up several times. I feel like maybe you and I have some unresolved conflicts that we need to do.
When the stream is over with, Bill and I are going to have a conversation. That's all I can tell you.
But there's actually, I mean, a lot of our audience today, I'm sure, is instructional designers, and you are really good at taking something like conflict resolution and breaking that down into the skills that you need that are then measurable. Mm-hmm. And then what you do in a simulation is you turn that into scenarios and decision points, and you have, hey, this decision point maps to this skill. And one of the things that you have to do to build a really quality simulation is you kind of have branching and things, and these are what our platform helps you do. But you test those things multiple times in multiple different ways. So it's not just like a difficult budget conversation. It's not just like one part of it. You actually
interaction, and then you're like,
yes, it's a fail. It's a conversation, right? Because a budget, you can't ask a true false question on an assessment about, are you good at negotiating your budget, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. But could you put together a 10-minute simulation with a conversation with whether it's a real actor or a simulated avatar about a budget? Yeah, you can do that, and you can break that down into skills. And if we do that, then we have, let's say we have 1,000 managers across a large organization that take that. If we've defined the skill, we can actually take those decision points, turn that into data about the skill, and then we can say, hey, like your budget conversations are going to be tough because your team is not,
equipped.
Practice. Yeah. Active listening is an important part of a budget conversation. That's one of the skills you want to have, and your team's not very good at it. So like you need to work on that before the budget cycle goes. So like, if as long as you can break things down into measurable skills, then we can then generate the data behind that, which is really fun.
You said something like everybody gets it, and I don't know that everybody does in the very beginning, where you said like you've got to decide in advance what you're going to try to measure, then back into that. So often, when you see it in like performance management, for example, where we're like, we did not get 100% compliance on our performance process. Like, is your goal 100% compliance, or is your goal better performance out of your people?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if the goal is better performance, what do we need to change about how we're communicating and how we think about it, how we design this? If your goal is compliance, well, then
there are ways to do that. Go check the box.
Yeah. Go get them. But you've got to decide what that outcome is you're trying to get to. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when it comes to learning, especially, it feels like measuring on the back end. A friend was telling me yesterday in a session, like they raised a hand talking about learning measurement. They said, hey, how do we
measured the performance of training for salespeople.
Sure.
Like, sales, maybe?
Yeah. That's a good indicator.
It's an easy one. For an admin, it's harder. For someone who is a people manager, it's harder. There's more nuance there.
Yeah, absolutely. But people have been doing this for a long time. I mean, there's been executive coaches for like things like leadership executive coaches. So we know what some of those characteristics are. And if you don't, like, companies like Skillwell can actually help you. And AI can also help you, right? Like that's an area where our tool leverages some AI stuff in the back end to help you define and measure those skills better. And that's really fun.
Well, Christopher, I saw him in the chat. He actually said this is a great use case for AI. It's not just creating meaningless stuff. It's not just pumping out lots of content and overwhelming people. AI slop is all the rage.
Yeah.
But this is a really well-defined, very specific, low-risk way to use AI.
But there's an important thing to remember here. Like what a lot of companies are doing that I think are not being, well, I don't say a lot. People that are struggling with how to use AI, especially on the measurement side, they're just kind of unleashing AI. Like, here, oh, you need coaching. Here's an AI coach. If you don't go and do what we just talked about, like define the problem you're trying to solve, define the outcomes, then just turning on an AI chatbot, all you're going to get is, my manager spent 1,700 hours with an AI chatbot talking about leadership, as opposed to if you define decision points, build a simulation. Empathy is a skill that we need to work on because we've tracked it consistently across, thousands of people taking that simulation. So I think we have to be careful. AI is going to be incredibly powerful in transforming learning. That's why we're embracing it. But we have to be able to give some structure so that we can actually scale the back end of that, right? Is it great if your leaders are out doing an AI leadership chatbot? Sure, that's wonderful. What do you learn about that, about how to build culture and how to build a culture of leadership? That's a harder problem if you're just kind of unleashing it on the company.
Yes. Well, a conversation is different than I have to commit to a decision.
Yeah.
Right. And it's right or wrong. And then I get coaching back on that. And then I can hone in on the right direction. I think about it like when planes are trying to go around storms, they use vectors to try to get to the place they're going. And you're vectoring on that skill until we land in the right spot.
That's a great example. And there used to be a really fun iPhone game where you had to route planes around until they all crashed. But yeah, absolutely. I was one of my favorite.
Very fitting right now with all the weird stuff going on with flights.
I've got to fly to Ireland tonight, to our headquarters in Ireland. So let's not talk about flight delays.
Conversations. Yeah. Thank you all for forgiving us for that. All right. So I want to ask you one last question before we wrap up here. During the keynote portion with Julie and Al, we had them talking about some of the great things learning's doing right now. I want to ask you another question. I want to say, what is something that learning leaders, like the ones that you and I can see here, I can flip the camera around for the audience, but see here in the audience here, what are some of the things that they need to stop doing so they can start doing the right things?
Wow. It's
30 seconds, right? No.
It's a great question. I think we need to stop being dependent on the things that have just worked for us in the past and just kind of roll things forward. I think so I gave this example last night at dinner, and this is a true story. If you ever want to add complications to your marriage, we're way too open here, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Buy a boat, okay? And buy a boat that will impact your marriage in negative ways, okay? And it came to the point where I had to take boater training, and I went to take the boater training, and you should go just sign up for boater training if you haven't done it. The course is very old, and it looks like it was filmed. People are in like weird swimsuits and stuff, but they just keep using it. Every state keeps using these old boater training courses because why change it?
Yes.
And I think one of the things that great leaders, one of our definitions of leadership in Skillwell is leaders drive change that creates new value. And that's one of our core tenets of leadership. And if you're still doing the same thing, if you look at any part of your learning and development group and you say, we're doing the same thing exactly the same way that we were doing it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you got to really examine and say, should I stop doing that? Is there a better way? Is there a new thing that I should be doing instead of that? Because unlike boating, where read, write, return, and certain things aren't those laws aren't ever going to change, right? The world is changing much faster than that in the business environment. So look at your portfolio, look at all of the problems you're trying to solve, and say, which ones of these have I not changed in, set a time frame and go take a look at them and take a take a hard look at them and say, let's jettison that and find a new answer to that problem. Or is that still the right problem that we should be addressing?
Give me that leadership call out one more time.
Leaders drive change that creates new value. That's one of our tenets of leadership. To be fair, I actually it's not my own. I stole it from a woman named Lindy Brewster and my former boss Bill Ballhouse. But it's part of our definition of leadership. If you're not driving change, you're not leading. That's part of what we say here, because you're not advancing things forward. And so when we talk about skill, like leadership training for us, one of the things that we measure and I coach my team on is what are you changing? Like, what are you doing differently? And that's different than management, right? Management is getting
Planning,
goals,
controlling,
delivering. Yeah, leadership is driving that change, and so that's an important part of what we're doing. We're trying to do here at Skillwell, and we just changed our company name, our colors, our product. So right now, I would say the team's doing pretty well at leading, because pretty much everything has changed in the last 24 hours. So,
I was looking for this. I was laughing because so the DevLearn t-shirts that they have this year, I was like, they got the Skillwell green. Like,
yeah, we did not. That was not coordinated at all. It was not.
Or was it?
The world will never know.
I mean, one day in a CEO, who knows?
Yeah, there's no coincidences in the world, right?
My goodness. Well, I asked about the leadership piece. I knew George was over there probably making notes. He probably that thrilled his heart because leadership is his love language.
Love it. Love it. I'd love to, George. I'd love to spend more time talking about that with you and talk a little bit about what we're doing.
George is also in Indy, so
great. So, Indianapolis, great. Home of the #2 football team. Well, actually, about an hour south, Bloomington, Indiana. Home of the #2 football team in the nation right now. By the way, small side note.
All right. I mean, all the little. Listen, you thought you were going to get learning only in this session. You've gotten so much more than that. And my goodness, I've enjoyed this thoroughly. So if someone wants to connect, learn more about Skillwell, the good things that you and the team are doing there, what's the best way for them to do that?
Skillwell.com. Check it out. It's brand new. It just went live yesterday. Check it out. Follow Skillwell on LinkedIn. Perfect. Be in touch. If you're here at the conference, booth 109, right inside the door, find us. We'd love to give you a demo. We'd love to build a fun simulation with you on some problem that you haven't tried to solve before. So we'd love to do it.
That was what I heard yesterday from one of the journalists giving the demo. He said, we had someone come earlier and give me a question. And he's like, I've never even heard this before. Like, what is this? And he looked and he puts it in. And again, the AI is good enough to parse out the skills pieces and give you some good answers. And she was like, that's exactly what we needed.
Yeah.
And he said, yep. I knew it, but
it's always nice when your software works as expected, like that, especially, the old like blue screen of death, moment in live demos. We've all had that. And so far we haven't had that.
Yeah.
Kudos to my development, engineering, and QA teams. Most of them are in Ireland and Spain right now. Well done on delivering a solid beta. If you're watching this right now, congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back.
Pat yourself on the back and train yourself up before the budgets.
That's right.
All right. We are going to transition back to Christopher and George and let them take this thing back over. Guys, thank y'all for coming to us live. I'm going to go get
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Phil, for joining me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank y'all for joining us. What a great session. Listen, everything Phil said was so incredible. I loved everything, but then he started talking football, Christopher, and we're Big Ten. You're in Wisconsin. I know Badger up. Shout out to Jeff Pulaski, all the team and everybody out there. He's IU, but I never figured out what a Hoosier was. And my dad was like a Hoosier, and I couldn't figure it out. So I became a hopeless nut. I'm a Buckeye through and through.
Okay.
And so he's the home of the #2 team. I just so happen to be home of the #1 team. OH to all my Ohio people out there.
Okay. All right.
But Chris, one of the things that I'm an acronym junkie, and I know people are waiting for me to come into an acronym. When I think about the skills and I think about this session, I was writing down some of the key words that I heard, or at least I comprehended it in my own way. When I think about skills, I think seek knowledge, inspire lifelong learning, right? Everything that he was saying, like he made a lot of quotes, and like this technology that Skillwell has is something that is incredible. It's not just another AI tool. It's something to help develop the skill set. What's something that stood out for you?
So I think one of the things is, especially now that I'm doing so much transformation work around AI, there's so much just noise, and there's so much what I would say is bad use of AI, where people are throwing AI hoping it'll solve a problem. And I think what really stood out to me is this is an example of what good looks like, is being able to say, hey, we're going to map out skills. We're going to create simulated environments where people can grow and develop these things. Like, we're using AI to bring out the best in people rather than just using AI to take things off people's plates. And there's room to do that. But I think there's way too much of that with just kind of this blind charge. And I think this is really a tangible, applicable thing that honestly, anybody, I mean, I've spent most of my career in learning, and this is something we've all wanted to do, but it's never been scalable or easy. Like, you could do it, but it took forever. It was way too expensive. There were all the problems of role play that they talked about. And so I think the fact we actually have something that can solve for that now is fantastic.
Awesome. Well, we're right on track here, Christopher. Right at the top of the hour, we got another great segment coming up. AI is changing learning, and here's what we need to know. This is going to be sponsored by one of our great event partners, Go1, and this conversation is great. I'm excited for it. Let's chime it up now.
All right.
And I am so excited to be here today with Chelsea Lua. She's the manager of customer success at Go1, and we're going to talk about some of the new data that the Go1 team has collected around how learners feel about AI, how it's impacting learning, and some of the things we're trying to accomplish as organizations. We're going to get into all the good stuff, Chelsea. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get into some of the fun things I was teasing for the audience there, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yes, of course. So like you said, my name is Chelsea Lua. I lead one of Go1's customer success teams here in North America. So my role centers on helping organizations to unlock the value of learning at scale while guiding customers through transformative change and enabling their people to thrive, especially in new technologies like AI. And so I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to our chat.
That seems like a very small mission there, Chelsea, trying to unlock the value of that. Goodness gracious. I want to unpack that for the next 20 minutes, but I know we've got to get to this AI research.
Right.
So one of the things that I've been super curious about, I had a chance to see the preview of this before it was live for everybody else. We'll share the link to everybody out there listening in just a few minutes for you to check it out yourself. But Go1 recently finished this research looking at how AI is impacting learning, the opportunities that are there for us as employers, how we should respond as learning leaders, things like that. Talk about some of the key highlights that you've been watching.
Right. So this was a very interesting and large study on AI and L&D, and it's actually the largest this year with over 2,000 L&D admins and employees, plus verified Go1 content intelligence data. So there were two key findings that I found very interesting. The first one was variation in learning needs and maturity. So with that, there's a huge disparity with our tech-focused employees.
So overall, there's a comfort level for employers that are in the tech space. Those employees at those companies probably already using AI because it aligns with some of their job, or they're doing work like us, right? Sitting at a desk. So that makes it easier to access the AI. So that's number one. What was the other one?
Exactly. So the other one is skills are driving AI adoption. So skills were actually ranked as both the number one reason for investing in AI learning and the number one way organizations plan to measure success. So L&D leaders want to become skills-based organizations, but this transition is demanding and time-consuming. So AI offers a huge opportunity to those L&D admins to finally make that vision a reality, which is really awesome.
So people are thinking about this. I'll put it in the context of some of the research we've done. I told you it was like complementary. Some of these things fit together, I was telling you. So the data we've collected say that when workers are worried about disruption from AI and other things, their answer isn't put your head in the sand or just sit in the closet and cry, but training, learning, development, growth. That's the way I'm going to get better. That's how I overcome this. That's my hedge against all these other sorts of changes. Is that sort of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah. Exactly. So you'll see in the research that was done that that's exactly what the answer was, but that's also what we hear from our customers as we speak to them is their employees are wanting more learning and to be enabled on how to use these AI features. And that's exactly what's going to get these organizations to where they want to be in success. But the first piece though, also, sorry, I want to go back to it just real quick. So the interesting thing is like, as you use AI more and more, the more comfortable you're going to be, which seems very, very obvious. But we have noticed that our frontline workers, so those like in healthcare, retail, our frontline managers are really uncomfortable using AI. And that's because they're not introduced to it. And they also don't feel like they've been enabled to do so. So they both kind of correlate together, like you've already said.
It naturally makes sense because you see all the early use cases. It's like, look, AI for coding, AI for writing, someone who's in a marketing role, great. They can use it for some of their campaigns, great. But then you see people who are a little bit distanced from that. Maybe I'm just doing work as a line level manager or a frontline manager. I may not be thinking about those sorts of examples and use cases because I'm trying to lead a team. I'm trying to deal with this difficult situation, things like that. And they're not thinking about how AI could fit into that. Maybe, hey, it can help you next time you got to give feedback. It's a, hey, listen, Chelsea, you did this really well. Next time, fix this. I don't know why I picked on you. I should have picked on me. But it might help them with those sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
But if they're not thinking about it that way, or if they're in a field that's a little bit distanced from that, it makes sense that they're not as connected or thinking about what those use cases could be. I talked to a group of healthcare leaders just last week, and that was part of the conversation was some of our people are thinking about this if they're in a corporate type of role, people who are out on the floor. AI is the farthest thing from their minds. They're thinking about a patient in that context.
Exactly, which can get confusing and understandably, right? But it's more of like switching the focus on like how it's, of course, like AI is not going to take care of your patient, but how can AI help you with your admin duties, some of like your write-ups and things like that, that we really are trying to switch the focus on that rather than doing the full job for you.
Yes. And I learned a new term last week for doctors called pajama time. The hours they're spent doing admin stuff, as you just called out, when they're not actually seeing a patient, something else. It's all the time after the kids have gone to bed, they're in their pajamas ready, and they've still got to finish their actual workload before they're wrapped up for the day. So taking those things off their plate, great use of AI as an example, or for our friends out here who are in the learning space, using it to classify learning content, using it to organize playlists, wonderful. Using it to do face-to-face coaching, maybe not as good of a use case. So lots of things, both outside our field and inside as well.
Right, exactly.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is I was really intrigued when I saw in the research that there was a major differentiator for companies that had a very clear vision, a very clear approach and communication around how the company sees AI either affecting their jobs or how people should be using it. If they did that well, there were good outcomes. If they didn't do that well, there were not good outcomes. Talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Right, yeah. So there's actually, the research found a very dramatic link between leadership communication and employee attitude. So when a company's AI strategy is clearly communicated, it was found that about 88% of employees say they're open and excited to use AI. But if leadership hasn't communicated a strategy, that number drops to just 40%. Well, and I know I'm throwing a lot of statistics in there, and it's all within the research, but while about 30% say they feel concerned about AI. So if the leadership is not clearly communicating to the employees what the strategy is going to be on AI, people become even more concerned about using it. So my biggest takeaway from that was the shift to AI and learning just isn't just about L&D's job, right? It requires strong executive sponsorship, while building alignment with leadership is the top priority. So we need to definitely have a come together to drive the confidence and adoption and ultimately success with AI-powered learning. So they really need to be driven together to get us where we need to be and see success with using it.
I was going to say, like, you probably at some point in your life, like everybody here listening to the stream today, you've had a thing that you're not sure about, and because you weren't sure, it got bigger and scarier the longer you thought about it. It never gets smaller and easier to handle.
Right.
Okay, it always gets worse. I text somebody, they don't respond. You're like, what's wrong? What happened? How do they feel? Like, is something going on? It happened with one of our teammates just a couple of days ago. I sent him a text. I didn't hear anything. I'm like, I've made them angry at me. What's happened?
Right.
And then later on, they're like, hey, is everything okay? Like, oh yeah, I just turned all my notifications off. I was out with the family. I'm like, okay, great. Okay. But in my mind, it was getting bigger and worse as I thought.
The unknown.
The AI piece is no different, Chelsea. Like, if we're not helping as organizational leaders cast a vision for what success looks like, help people see how this feels, all they're seeing, if we're not sharing that, are the headlines, all the negative stuff, all the scary stuff. And that's what they're worried about. And we can take that away if we're willing to put that vision out there, as you said.
Right. Exactly. And that's going to come from like the very top of organizations all the way down. And it really needs to be the same, right? From L&D and the leadership, it needs to stay exactly the same. Because if L&D is saying it's exciting and we love it and we want you to enable, but then leadership is like, oh, I'm not sure. I don't know what this is going to be like. Then there's going to cause some confusion, but then there's also going to cause some weariness in the unknown.
Yes. Well, speaking of the unknown, I think that was one of the other takeaways for me that was really intriguing is The difference between humans and AI, algorithms, computers, whatever you want to call it, long term, is the human's ability to adapt, to think critically, as you said, the unknown, right? To reskill and think around problems, to be able to solve things that today are unknown. And humans have a great track record for being able to tackle those kind of problems. Talk about how the research shows that playing out over time and how we can use those strengths as a community of learning leaders, like people listening in here, how we can play to those strengths that we have.
Yeah, of course. So the research actually shows that L&D leaders have high confidence in their ability to adapt to AI powered in the future, right? So we've noticed this as we've moved to like a digital and remote working environments, that L&D has really taken the front of the line, right? They are good at being able to manage and help us to continue to learn and grow, and are one of the first to do so, right? So L&D's experiences with previous waves makes them uniquely equipped to guide organizations now. So the key in applying change management in learnings and is to recognize when the human element is the most important. So like mentoring, coaching, critical thinking, those are the most vital pieces that need that human element. So AI is going to come in and supplement, but it's not going to completely come in and overpower the human element of it, right? And really what AI can do is accelerate and personalize the learning. But again, the human L&D leaders are the ones who ensure learning is purposeful and contextual and inclusive. But we want to blend those together to make a more trustworthy and get better results as we continue to learn and understand this process.
So I want to step away from the research for a second and ask you, at the very beginning, you talked about unlocking the value of learning at scale. Talk about that in this bigger context. We're talking about AI, all those sorts of disruptions, changes, everything else. But fundamentally, what you think about day to day when you're working with clients, you're helping them to adopt the technology and to adopt the learning programs that you're giving them access to. You're thinking about this, unlocking that at scale. Talk about what that means to you, what that means at a practical level for the people that you're trying to serve.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you already gave a really good example of this. So our L&D leaders are, I mean, everyone in their business is very, very busy. You have a lot going on. There's a lot of people to talk to. There's also those admin or pajama work, like the doctor said, which is a fun term, and I'm definitely going to continue to use that. But there's a lot of these kind of nuances that are like just things that we have to get done that AI really can help supplement so that we have more time to spend with people, mentoring, coaching, understanding, and having, like, even getting to know people, right? So it's going to take that piece away, those admin functionalities, not away, but it's going to just make it easier for you to have more time to spend with your teams in enabling and getting to success, right? Because it's at scale, like you said. So this is meaning like we need to be able to do it at a large, as if we're a large organization, but for these small businesses as well. And that's the way to do it, is to use AI to supplement and get some of these tasks done.
I think about when we look at the research, one of the things that stands out to me are data we've collected for the last, 10 years now. A thing that comes up over and over, whether we're surveying around learning or hiring or other parts of the talent ability, things like that, the thing that comes out is people don't want to be seen just for what they can do right now. People want to be seen for the potential that they have. And when you said that earlier, unlock, that's the picture I had in my head, was every person out there, there is some way we can unlock that potential, that value, the capabilities they have, a skill they haven't tapped into yet that they could be incredible at, but haven't had a situation or opportunity to play into it. And that's my hope with this. We talk about pajama time, admin time, the things that we can take off their plate. It is my hope that people start to lean into some of those other skills or their strengths they have that today they would love to spend more time that they can't. They're just too busy. And they get to spend more time in that and develop this new capability that potentially changes the trajectory of their career, their earnings, their life. Like all those things can be tethered to that, not just, oh yeah, I can do a new job, but hey, we can do a new job, this new pay scale, my family's been taken care of. I think about the bigger impact and picture of that. And it's part of what we talked about during the keynote panel for this event, is some of those sorts of impacts learning has beyond just, okay, now Chelsea has this one new skill today. Yes, but how does Chelsea feel about her future? Is she excited about that? Is she bought into that? Like, that's the vision that gets me so excited about the impact here and the opportunity that's right at our fingertips.
Yes, I completely agree. And that's exactly what we hear from our customers as well, is that we want to, like we said, unlocking the potential of our learners, but we just don't have the time to do so, right? But that's what they're hearing from their employee base is like, well, I would love to be able to learn how to code or to be a project manager or something, whatever skill, or Excel, right? Maybe it's someone that would love to learn Excel to get to the next level, but they just haven't had the time to do so. But now we can have AI powered learning, AI powered career trajectory. And on top of that, we can use AI to help us with those pajama work so that we have time to actually do the learning so that we can continue to grow.
So I've got to give a kudos really quickly to the Go One team, because I'm talking about research we've done. We're talking about some of the survey work that went into this for on the Go One side as well. But one of the things that you mentioned in like 3 seconds or less early on was this also pulled in some data that you can see across your customer user base, right? Pulled in some of the, I can't remember what you called it, like intelligence insights. What was the term for that?
It's the Go One content intelligence data.
That's right. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
So the content intelligence you can see across all these different organizations, different industries, different sizes, different people doing different jobs, but you can see across that this sort of set of trends and insights that you could pull from that, again, the rest of us research nerds out here would salivate over to see that kind of data. But those things also factored into this research to help you see the direction and what's possible and people's interest overall in some of the types of content that are available. So I wanted to call that one out.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So luckily we do have the data that we can pull from to back up what was done in the surveys, and they did compare. So it is nice to see that when it happens that way.
People here listening in have had this report mercilessly teased in front of them the whole time. I'll make sure and drop the link into the chat for all of you to go and download that. You can go look at this report because it's got a foreword from yours truly here that I put together for this, and it really dives into some of the things that I thought were incredible. You got a preview of some of that just now, but not all of it. Then you can see all the good things like Chelsea here was sharing with everybody. Chelsea, to wrap us up today, people here listening right now, there's lots of news about AI. As I said earlier, if they're only seeing the news and headlines, it can be a kind of a weird, scary place. Again, regardless of whether it's AI related or not, I'd love to hear from you. What should they walk away with as a thing to be thinking about, as their homework action item potentially, or just a big idea that you think is important that seems to be resonating with some of the clients you've been talking with? What do you want to leave the audience with today as we're wrapping up?
Yeah, of course. I think the biggest thing, and I think this applies to many things, but lean into the uncomfortable, right? We've had so many things happen over the last 5 years, and we've had to really lean into that to be able to get us to continue to grow and unlock the potential for our futures.
So lean into the uncomfortable. Just because it doesn't feel comfortable doesn't mean it's bad. There's a lot of new research coming out around that, some new books as well that sort of touch on that piece. And it's a great encouragement, great call out there. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for spending some time with us, for sharing with us, for the Go One team, for supporting the event today. I am so looking forward to hopefully seeing you in person at DevLearn, getting to catch up briefly in person, and maybe shoot a quick video for the audience as well.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in person.
Awesome. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming right up.
All right, George.
What's up, my friend?
I see you got your camera fixed. It overheated for a minute, so I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to stay connected anymore. But listen, I was ready. I was ready if we needed to.
Hey, things happen with technology. You think you buy high, tech equipment, and I don't think it's ready for what happens in these live streams. And so, yeah, I got several text messages. Shout out to Aaron Stevens down in Louisville that shouted me out too. Is overheating over here. Listen, it is getting hot over here. And,
it's that shoe collection. It's that shoe collection. That's the thing. Somebody even brought it up in the beginning.
It's a little bit, the thing about shoes and learning is that like it's different, right? Like every shoe doesn't fit the same person. So you got to have a variety opportunities when it comes to learning. That's good tie-in from shoes there right on the spot. Chris, we listen to this conversation and I'm excited. For those who do not know, please check out in the top left corner of the screen. There is a QR code there for Go One if you want to connect with them, as well as some of the information that we share there. So you can do that as well. But Christopher, what was something that really kind of stood out for you in that conversation with Ben and Chelsea?
Yeah, I think one of the things they hit on that I run into a lot in my work is there's kind of this assumption that because there's so much information going around, people know what's happening and where things are going. And they don't. And I think one of the things that really jumped out was how they talked about the importance of being proactive and leaning into like, hey, here's where we're going. Here's what we're doing, whether it's AI, whether it's the vision of the organization. Change is the name of the game right now.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when you don't proactively talk about it, people start making up their own things, and they don't make up good things. Like, they're not thinking like, you know what, I'm gonna think the best of this. I'm sure this is how it's gonna go, especially when all the noise is saying like the end is near type of a thing. And I think that's something a lot of organizations forget, or they send an email, or they do a town hall and they're like, we should be good. And with the amount of stuff people are getting hit with, you got to just keep on it to keep people focused.
Yeah, that's the key. I think, as you said, the proactive thing is there's so many things that happen in the course of life and in business and organizations that are so reactive. Our good friend Jeff, we had an incredible conversation earlier this year at HR Summer School about this very thing, right? The difference between a fire extinguisher and a fire hose. Like, you got to be proactive in some things, and so that's important to have. I'm excited about this next one. We got Sean coming up for this next session, and so we just want to move right on to the next one. And this one you will love. Take some notes. I want to hear some information of what you find in the first 5 or 6 minutes as something that pings out to you guys in the audience. Here we go.
Everyone, we're so glad you're here with us today. And I know you've been getting good ideas, insights, expertise from our other speakers, and this session is going to be no different. I'm excited to have Sean here with me from We Learn. We're going to dive into some of the things that we need to step back and think about differently, not just diving in, but slowing down to make the right choices, not just more choices, more productivity, all those sorts of things, but really making sure we're doing the right sorts of things. Sean, so glad you're here. Welcome.
Ben, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
We're gonna get into some good stuff. And before we start, I'm gonna let you tell the audience more about who you are. But first, I'm gonna let them know that you and I almost came to blows because you have this belief that chocolate and peanut butter can come together. And I was very much opposed to that and still am. And so all of you out there listening in, you can drop in the chat if you're like pro chocolate peanut butter or anti, and you can be team Sean or team Ben as we go through this. But all right, now that's out of the way. The important stuff, Sean. Tell us more about
I think it's a little unfair to ask people to be Team Sean or Team Ben when you're the host. I think you're probably gonna win.
But you have a very popular opinion, so that's the thing. It's gonna be yeah. There we go. We'll see. We'll have to go back afterwards and do actual, what's it called?
See what the sentiment analysis was.
Yes, all that good stuff. So yeah. Beyond your love of chocolate and peanut butter, what else do we know about Sean?
Yeah. So I'm the CEO and Chief Learning Officer for We Learn. We're a learning services agency. So we work with organizations, and our mission is to build better humans through learning. Prior to We Learn, I worked for a global education company. I often talk about it as working for a global evil empire, but I got to hang out with the Rebel Alliance and the Ewoks on Endor and do like really interesting stuff in the corporate and association space. So I've been in learning and development for over 20 years, and I get to get up every day and work with people I love and do really cool things.
That's so fun. I heard you say this a second ago. I want to go back to it. You said building better humans. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that, what I mean by that is that learning is actually how you build better humans. It is how we advance as individuals. It's how we advance as organizations. It's how we advance as communities and ultimately as society. And so I think learning has that power. And so it has the power to be transformative. And so for us, we're not training cars, we're not training boats, we're not training robots, we're training humans. And so I believe that that's what we do. We build better humans through learning.
I love that. I had the flashback in my head to the comment that my wife and I say all the time. It's like, we're not trying to raise good kids. We're trying to raise kids to become good adults. So that's our focus. So let's start off. When it comes to development, training, learning, all those sorts of things, what are some of the primary reasons that employers are putting dollars behind learning as an investment right now?
Yeah. You know what? I think that's such a great question, Ben. And I think that it's a fallacy to believe that companies invest in learning and development just because they want to be nice. It doesn't happen that way. I think there's really 3 primary reasons why companies invest in learning and development. The first is risk mitigation. So legal compliance, risk avoidance. Think about it as just stay out of jail card. Think about it as trying to stay off the cover of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. It is really about managing risk, both legal and reputational risk for the organization. The second is really around building the skills and competencies and the capabilities that the organization needs in order to meet its strategy. Buying skills on the open market is incredibly expensive. And so the more that you can build skills internally, the more that you can provide pathways of development for people that are in your organization that, come in one role, but want to grow into others, that skills-based learning strategy is super important. And the third is really around culture. You deliver learning to sustain and build your culture, whether that is a culture of learning, it's about a culture of innovation, a culture of collaboration, a culture of inclusion, all of those things. Those are all reasons why organizations invest in learning.
One of the things we did some research on last year that I'm thinking of as you're talking here is we looked at what it takes to create a strong and positive culture of learning. Because everybody's got a culture of learning. Sometimes it's just a culture of we don't train anybody, or you're only trained if you're already a high performer, but the rest of the people are like, good luck, suckers. And so there's a whole range of experiences around that. One of the things we found is that a successful learning culture comes when you're blending autonomy and opportunity. So do I have that vision as you're talking about? Can I see this path ahead for me? Do I have choices and options when it comes to developing towards that? And when you have just one of those, like you can develop all you want to, but for what? Or great vision, but good luck trying to build the skills to get you from point A to point B. And that combination creates these positive outcomes that people can really latch onto within an organization. And that's when you start to see the positive outcomes like retention and other sorts of things coming from that, I would argue.
You know what? I think you use a term in the research that we use a lot called the democratization of learning, right?
Yes.
The more you can democratize learning in the organization, the better off that you are. In fact, I was just talking to a talent leader and we were talking about where you invest in learning. And sometimes organizations are really loath to invest in the frontline population because they view that as a high turnover population. And sometimes the learning that those populations need actually are not the most expensive learnings in the world. And if you invested a bit in that space, it does tremendous things for you, both in terms of retention in your frontline, but also in terms of how your brand is viewed in terms of how you invest in your employees. And you'll find out sometimes, and we've seen this in work that we did in the hospitality industry, for example, investing in educational solutions for frontline attracted senior level talent to come to the organization because they believe that, hey, if you as an organization invest in your frontline in that way, you are clearly an organization that believes in learning and in investment and in talent. And so I think that democratization of learning, not the, hey, you're already high potential, we're going to invest in you, or, oh, you're a leader, that's super important.
I'm going back to what you said a minute ago about this isn't just for fun. This isn't just for kicks and giggles. This is for an outcome. This is for a goal, right? And the individual outcomes roll up to that business level outcome. And one of the things that you and I chatted about recently is we were talking about how you were looking at this research around learning outcomes. And you said, you know what, I don't know if this is the right way to position this or think about that. Talk us through that thought process, what you realized, and maybe what the alternative could be.
I think that as L&D, we spend a lot of time trying to justify our existence. There's a lot of conversation in the L&D profession about the seat at the table, and that always comes back to how do we measure the impact of what we do. And I think that we spend a lot of times trying to think about impact in terms of how learners feel about us and what we did, how they feel about the learning experience, maybe some of the knowledge, we get some knowledge retention. But I think that too often we are not understanding what the measures of success are when it comes to our stakeholders. Because at the end of the day, the stakeholders, the line of business, the executive team are all charting strategy and asking learning to support it. And I think, what's important to realize is that the learning strategy isn't just a learning strategy. It is a business strategy. It is a driver to the business strategy. So the more that we can connect the outcomes that we measure and that we report on and how we talk about what we do to the impacts in the outcomes that the business is looking for from what we do, the better off we're going to be. And I think that will make measurement and that impact storytelling so much easier.
So the storytelling comment there at the very end, I was already thinking this way, and that confirmed it for me. So we did some research on this earlier this year, looking at what it takes to create a data-driven talent function. And one of the things that stood out to me is we actually surveyed leaders who are outside of our bubble, right? People who are line managers, people who are chief operating officers, people who are CFOs. We asked them, hey, how good is your people team at using data to convey stories? And they're like, not so great. And so it's not enough to gather the data as a learning team. It's not enough to even know the right sorts of things, but how we communicate that, where we do, to what extent we do, the people on the receiving end, right? How we preface it, all those sorts of things matter deeply. And I can show up with and bring you the best possible idea. And if I haven't positioned it right, or I haven't made sure that I'm speaking in terms of what you care about, it's not going to land. It's not going to matter. And I'm going to miss that potential one shot that I have to really move the needle.
It's so funny you say that, and it reminds me of I had a boss who at one point was the chief credit officer of BNP Paribas, and we worked for a financial trading company. And she taught me this, which I always chuckle and I remember, is that when it comes to corporate credit analysis, when it comes to financial statement analysis, when it comes to auditing a company, the most interesting details are not in the balance sheet, they're in the footnotes. It's where all of the good stuff is hidden, and the footnotes are the story, right? And so I think to your point, right, we as HR leaders, we as L&D leaders, we have sources of data. We can bring data together. We're not always wrapping the story around it that we need to. And so I think we have to spend just as much time thinking about the footnotes, the story, as we do the data. Because let's face it, when it comes to the data and the numbers, there are going to be stakeholders that we go to, particularly in finance, that are probably more experienced in dealing with the numbers than we are, and are going to have an appreciation of that. They want the story, right? And so I think we have to learn to focus on both sides of that equation equally and not sacrifice the story for the numbers.
I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute here, if you're okay with that. I would love to hear you tell a story in that vein. One of the problems I have is we talk about this sort of thing all the time. You and I and other leaders like us have these conversations all the time, one-offs. But people who are hearing this, be like, "That's great, Sean, but how? What should I say? What should it feel like?" So could you just give me a quick hypothesis or hypothetical sort of, hey, here's the kind of thing we found, and here's the story, right? Present it to me. I can be the evil CFO. I don't have a Darth Vader mask around here, but we'll roll with the Star Wars metaphor from earlier. But tell me, let's let the audience hear what that sounds like, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I will give you an example. We worked with an organization to develop a high potential rotation program for investment management professionals. The goal of the program was not necessarily promotion, but it was to build a more well-rounded leader and for the organization. We focused on what were the core competencies that had to be delivered for that group, and that experience was delivered over an 18-month period. Again, our goal wasn't promotion. It was to build a culture of leadership, a culture of communication, a culture of brand ownership in the organization. And so we ran that program with the organization over 18 months. It included deep levels of coaching and mentoring. It included multiple aspects of facilitation. It included connectivity between the executive leadership team and the participants. And again, this was across 3 levels of leadership below the ELT. What we found when we got to the end of the program was, while not intentional, 3/4 of the population had been moved into more advanced responsibility. Some of that was they moved up a level. Some was that they got a greater scope of role. Some of it was that they actually got promoted to ELT level roles, right? So number one is we saw this incredible impact on promotion that we hadn't expected. The second thing, which was intentional, was we saw 100% retention of everybody in the program, right? So we were dealing with a population that was in a very small part of the organization. There are a lot of competitive opportunity to leave the organization if you're not promoted, but we saw 100% retention, which wasn't our focus per se, but it was a great unintended outcome of the program. So when we begin to look at it, right, this is about building culture. It's about building community. It's about building leadership skills. The 2 metrics, right, the one metric we were looking at was, hey, are we building up better leaders? We found that the promotability was there. And then the retention number was the one that we were like, oh, wow, like we went through this 18-month program and not one person left the organization. And that was pretty huge. Right now, we're living in this interesting age. I think it was one of the big consulting firms just came out and they were labeling people unreskillable. right? And I think that is such and it's in the age of AI, but I think it's such a cop out that organizations would ever deem someone to be unreskillable. And honestly, I think that part of that to me says you've not made the attempts, or you've not made that opportunity available in the way that they need.
Yes. I can't and do not want to try to defend what they're doing there. The only thing I can come to is when we look at our own research, it comes down to a sense of, am I in the right organization? Do I feel accepted and respected and appreciated? If I have those things in place, every single thing that they're offering, like, oh yeah, me first, pick me. Oh, I can't wait. Do you have that development opportunity? Can I build a skill? Is there a mentor I can tap into? But when they feel like they're not plugged in, when they feel like they don't have a level of acceptance and respect, when they don't feel like they're appreciated, offer them all of the great things, and the mindset is not there for the uptake. So we can't get them to be excited about it, right? You can't light wet wood is how we used to put it. And so that's where they are. Guess what? You can offer them all you want. And what's the point?
Yep. And again, that person's going to vote with their feet.
Yes.
Or they're going to quit and stay, right? You have those two things. So
yes,
absolutely.
Okay. So you brought this AI concept. I want to go back to this one. So there's so much conversation about this right now. I know that we talked about this a little bit probably in our opening keynote today around some of the AI things that are changing in the market, some of the things for us to be thinking about. I would love to hear from you. Let's do best use case or best role for AI when it comes to learning. What is it? What should we be doing with it, and how should we be using it and weaving it into what we're doing?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think this conversation would count as a conversation if we didn't talk about AI. So I'm glad we're talking about it. You know what? Here's the thing. I don't know that we have the best use case for AI yet in L&D. I think what I would say is experimentation is the word of the day. I think we have to be open to experimentation. I think that from how do we use it to bring efficiency to how we design and develop content. I'm going to say, as someone who runs a content development company, that's part of what we do. We do use AI in certain ways, but AI does not replace humans. I just want to say that out loud for the people in the back. AI does not replace humans in content development. From our perspective, there's a role for AI in coaching and how you deliver coaching at scale. I think that there is a role for AI in how we deliver personalized learning. And what's interesting is, and I think that we always have to take a step back and remember, is that AI has been around L&D for a long time. We have recommendation engines, we have adaptive learning platforms. What's really new for us now is this idea of generative AI, right? And we're 3 years into this, and the tools are changing, and people are bolting it onto platforms, or the new AI first platforms tools being brought to market every day. I think that the operative word for us at L&D is experimentation, and I will caveat that and say thoughtful experimentation. Let's thoughtfully experiment with the tools and how they connect us to the outcomes that the organization wants. I think that that's what's so important.
Okay, so let's go to the other side of this. So there's some positive examples, some talk about exploration and experimentation. What are the things we should absolutely not be using AI for when it comes to learning?
I don't think we should use AI as the sole source of creation. I think that I'll go back to when we talk about why organizations do learning, and the number one was really around risk mitigation.
Yes.
I think that we haven't seen it yet, but there's going to become the moment where there's an organization that has a risk moment because there was learning content that was 100% created by AI, and that content led to malfeasance or some sort of bad behavior. I equate it to the consulting firm has to give back $300,000 for a report generated by AI. We will have that moment in L&D. Like, it will happen somewhere, and then people are going to be like, oh, we can't do it that way.
One of the things that I've also come to think about is so much of what I'm seeing around human in the loop talk discussions is like AI does decision making, humans come in later and just like rubber stamp it. And it's like, that's not humans in the loop, that's humans after the loop. And we have to have them in there, as you're talking about through this. When you were delegating, how you think about this, and you're delegating or letting AI run wild, you're going to get some things initially that look okay, but over time it's going to go farther and farther off the rails from what the truth is. And so what you want to be seen as, you mentioned earlier, you don't want your company in the news for the wrong reasons. And that's what you're going to end up with if you are approaching it this way, just letting it handle that.
I think it's one of those things where even as smart as AI gets smarter and better at what it does, the most fundamental, I think, thing that we as humans could do is always when AI gives the answer, ask it why. Seriously, treat it like a 5-year-old. Why? Right? Let it get the justification. Because here's the thing: you, as the humans in the loop, right? We understand the context for the organization. We understand the ways in which it needs to be applied. We understand the outcomes that are intended for us. We understand all of those things. So I think our job as the humans in the loop, and again, this is where I say this: the worst application of AI for L&D is AI does it all on its own, is we always have to challenge the thinking of the model and go, why is that the answer that you've come up with?
I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm going to ask the audience, all of you out there listening in right now, I'm going to ask you a quick question, and then I'm going to we're going to wrap up, Sean, here. For all of you out there listening into us now, what is one thing that you would never want to give up, right? If I said, look at this range of things you have around developing your people, what is one of the tasks or activities? What is one of the pieces of that overall puzzle that you would say, listen, I'm never going to outsource this to AI or give this up because this matters to me, or it matters to our business, or this is something I believe is deeply human. I'd love to see all of you chime in there in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking on that front. Okay, Sean, this has been an incredible conversation. I've taken a bunch of notes over here, enjoyed this so much, as I knew that I would. Still not convinced on the peanut butter chocolate thing, but we'll debate later. If someone wants to know more about WeLearn and the good work that you and the team are doing, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. You can follow us on LinkedIn, and then our website, ls.com.
Excellent. Perfect. I'll make sure and drop that into the comments section here so all of you can click through, check out what they're doing. I'll make sure and drop your LinkedIn profile there as well, Sean, so they can connect with you, because I know they're going to want to after this session. Thank you again, my friend, for a great conversation, for your passion for developing people and making sure we're staying on the right side of history when it comes to AI and some of these other trends.
Well, Ben, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming right up.
All right. George,
wow.
I'm throwing it to you this time. What was the thing that, because we've got a little bit of extra time, we're running ahead of schedule. We got that little clip. We got a live clip from the showroom floor, but I'm curious, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I think it's towards the end, right? There's just conflict, and I think more mentally than it is like in all actuality. And I think a lot of the roots of the struggle with where technology is going, right? If you think, 20 years ago, we weren't even talking about iPhones or anything like that. And then when the phones start coming out, we're talking about a huge chunk of hunker that was in the car, right? That was just kind of adapting. And I see technology being this ever-changing thing. And now with AI, I don't know if it's so much of the fear that it's going to replace people versus the lack of knowledge or understanding of how it can actually elevate you. Now, our robots here, there are going to be some things that are going to be automated. Can AI help increase, things like recruiting and some of those things, onboarding? Sure. But I think at the end of the day, when Ben asked the question, what's one thing you cannot give up, Chris, all I can think about is anything that does account with humanity. Like I love the connection, with Christopher, where we can talk about things. AI.
I mean, you don't want me to send my agent to the next event and just talk to my AI agent?
Yeah, the agent is not going to counsel me. Now, we have seen stories. I've seen and read tragedies, right, where young kids are getting counseling or asking AI for these different things. But when it comes to the workplace, I think AI is a tool that we can use, but there's still that human intelligence and common sense that we need. Like, I need Christopher to be locked in and tell me verbally, George, this is what's wrong, right? Like, correction. There is accountability. We talked about accountability in the first session and how we keep accountable. So for me, it's that human connection that can never be replaced when it comes to that. And part of that is, especially with learning, and over the last couple of sessions, we've been talking about the soft skills. Phil there was talking about the soft skills as well. There are certain things that I say soft skills, they seem very difficult and hard nowadays, but there are certain things that the AI cannot replace, that we as humans have to be there. That authentic leadership and that empathy is so important. And I feel like it's untouchable. Like you
Well,
can say
and
what you want to
what's
say.
interesting about it, what you're talking about, and I think this is where we've really been challenged recently, is we inherently, I think, know some of this stuff. We sense it, we feel it. Unfortunately, we've never really had to define what it was, because there was really never anything that challenged it. And that's what we saw like with the pandemic and remote work, where it was like, there's just something about being in the room. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, but what? Because clearly we know how to work around it and things like that. And I think that's the stage we're in with AI right now, where it's like, when we say there's something unique about humans, we're in that real difficult challenge because AI keeps popping up and doing a good job of faking it. So it fools people for a little bit. You're kind of like, wow, it kind of does do what a person does. But then you're like, well, but not quite. There's something that's still missing from it. And I think we have some room to grow. I think one of the things that stood out to me that I continue to see that, for anybody watching, I think things like these are really great to talk about, like, hey, here's some things to be thinking about. Here's some things to be looking at. Here's some great use cases to be targeting.
Yeah.
At the same time, the very thing we talked about is one of the things we risk if we're not careful, which is just operating off what we heard instead of actually doing the thinking and going, okay, I heard this at this event, or maybe this is a use case. Now I actually need to go back and explore, does this actually make sense in our organization? Are we ready from a maturity standpoint yet? Do we have the internal capability? Instead of just going, I heard this great use case, we need to go get it now. If we do that, literally, we aren't doing the thing that we know humans are uniquely capable of. And yeah, you can still use AI to help you with some of that stuff. But I think anybody who tells you these are the 5 things everybody should be doing with AI is a liar. They're a snake oil salesman. Like, you really have to go, hey, there's work you got to do. You can't just take a top 10 list and throw it into your organization.
Yeah. I think some of the things that really stood. I want to read a couple of these. Then I want to go to that quick video. So we have a live video that Ben just did on the show floor there at DevLearn. We want to show that. But some things that we cannot give up, and I agree with some of these creative art. Acting for me was one of those. Jeff said empathy, creativity, and those things that require uniquely human. I love that word, uniquely human things. The other one that Heather Curtin said this: the foundation. And this is important. I don't want to build anything on the foundation of AI. Like, I want there to be, this is my vision, right? Like, I want to write it plain on the tablet, going back to those days. Like, I want to be able to write this vision down and what it really means, the mission down. I want to write these core values. I don't want something to be created for me and then I have to live it. I want to know that this is something that's inside of me. And Heather Curtin said it best: the foundation of creative thinking and collaboration. The initial brainstorming, like that seed initially, has to be something that is at the forefront, that we should not give to AI. How can you make it better, AI? Can you build upon these?
Right. What are we not thinking about? There's lots of those things, but to your point, we forget that AI is the collective average of everything out there, including a bunch of complete garbage.
Yeah.
So really, AI is bringing the collective average down, and sometimes it's positioned as, it's more brilliant than 1,000 PhDs. It's like, well, yeah, but by the time you average those 1,000 PhDs with the garbage on Reddit, it ends up kind of shaking out at like it can be helpful, but you better be thinking clearly.
Right. Well, let's go real quick. Let's show this video, and then we'll be coming back to you to wrap up with another live session, our final one of the day. That's going to be featuring some of our latest research with the one and only Roberta. You're going to love her. But first off, here's Ben live from DevLearn.
Hey everyone, we're here at DevLearn in Las Vegas, and I'm so excited to be here with Alicia. Alicia, why are you here today?
Well, after years of coming to the conference and then not going to the conference, it came to me that I'm worth it, that I'm worth the investment, even if I'm paying for it. It's my development, it's my future, so that's why I'm here. And while I will continue to be here as long as I can.
I think that's a powerful message for everybody out there who did not come, to remind you just how valuable this is. Don't wait for someone else to believe in you first, right? I feel like a Ted Lasso moment there almost, like I believe in you. So such a great call out. What is a big problem that you're trying to solve right now when it comes to learning?
I think the biggest issue or challenge that I have in my new organization is just resources. So what resources we have, how do we utilize them? how do we maximize them? Budgets are shrinking, they're not getting bigger. Everybody's having to tighten the belt a little bit. So what gives us our biggest bang for our buck?
That's a tough challenge, trying to figure out how to utilize them the best, get the most out of everything you already have on hand. And maybe there's a little bit left where we can invest that as well. So thank you so much for sharing just for a moment with us here. To everybody else out there, thank you for hanging out.
Awesome.
All right.
That is great.
We're into our final session, and then we're going to close it up and just kind of debrief and chat at the very end.
Well, let's go. Listen, I'm so excited for everybody to be able to hear the wisdom, the insights of the great Roberta. Miss Roberta joined our team here at Lighthouse, and she's just phenomenal. I had an opportunity to meet her in person in September for another conference. We all met up together. She flew over from Brazil, got stuck in Atlanta, and went about 36 hours with no sleep, like nothing that had ever happened. And so without further ado, let's chime up this conversation into our Learner Insight Survey for 2025.
I know you're having such a great time today at the live stream, getting some insights, hearing from our amazing speakers and partners on this event. And Roberta and I are here to kind of wrap us up. Yeah, Christopher and George will do the final wrap up, but we want to share with you some of the things that we're seeing in the research, some brand new findings from a new study. Roberta and I have been like neck deep in this, going through some of the things that we could find in here and bring to you and help you think about what your people are worried about, how you can help them, how you can get a handle on some of the challenges around learning. And I'm so thrilled to be here with you. So most of you probably know me already, but I'm Ben Eubanks, Chief Research Officer at Lighthouse. And I love really diving into the data. It's my probably favorite part of my day, Roberta, every day, getting to do this. And so I like pulling things from the insights, the research to help all of you be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. That's the big mission for me day to day. And I am, fun fact, dad of 5 kids. And so Christopher has got me beat. He's the dad of quite a few more than that. You can ask him sometime or drop in the chat. He'll answer you there. But dad of 5 kids, I like to think that prepares me, Roberta, for all the juggling I have to do day to day here at Lighthouse. So I want you to tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
Thanks a lot, Ben. So I'm a go-to-market leader and analyst in the space for the last 20 years. And I do pet rescue. I've got 35 fur babies I'm taking care of on my rescue. And then the rest of the time I'm geeking about the technologies and data that we have it in our research.
Hey, that's 5 kids makes me feel like I'm like lacking now. So thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for showing off a little bit. We're glad to have you at Lighthouse. We're glad to have you here along with us for this session today. And George has probably actually got his feet like kicked up, kicked back, relaxing, because he normally is my partner in crime on these parts of the research. So he's probably enjoying himself over there, and we'll get to comment on this after we're done. So we're going to dive in. We're going to go back and forth, share some of the data with the audience out there and help them understand some of the things. So first off, a couple big things I want you to hear. I always like starting with a couple big ideas or themes. I've been sharing this chart in one of my keynotes over the last year, talking about how we're in one of the hardest periods of work ever. If you look at the things here represented, some of them are work related and some of them are not. Some of them are like outside the bubble, but they still affect what's happening inside that bubble. They affect our people, how they feel about work, their worries, their concerns, their fears, all those sorts of things. And so the thing that I come away with this is, and it will show up in the data in a little bit, you'll see, is that we think about the things in terms of the tasks we're working on. We are creating learning content, we're teaching a class, we're helping people to make sure they're building a skill. And those things matter in the work context, but they also matter beyond those 4 walls. They affect how they feel about their jobs and burnout. They affect how they feel about uncertainty or inflation because they feel like they have a control over their career. And those things fit in there. One other thing before we start diving into the data is I want to tell you that we think about companies doing different things. Companies that serve customers, companies doing services and creating new ideas, innovating. Companies that are trying to compete in the market, things like that. And one of the things I want you to hear is that companies don't do any of those things. Companies is an entity or an idea. They're a concept. My daughter's learning about concrete and abstract nouns. That's an abstract thing. The reality is your people are doing these things. Your people are serving customers. They're dreaming up new ways to compete in the market. They're dreaming up new ideas and solutions no one's ever seen. Your people are taking ownership over problems and working them through to the end result. And so as part of this bigger conversation today, you've heard these themes from Sean, from the team at Go One, from our friends over at ETU. You've heard from these different leaders about what they're doing, how they're helping to solve for these things. And I want you to hear that this is about enabling and empowering each of your people in the business to step up and do these kinds of things. Because again, companies don't solve problems, but your people surely will, especially if they're well developed. Okay, Roberta. So let's get into this. We just finished this brand new study, looked at over 700 workers across North America. We're going to share some findings with you now, kind of go back and forth through the data and let you hear some of the things that are important to us, that are interesting to us, and we'll do a little tag team back and forth as we go through it. So the first one I want to touch on is we're in this phase right now, Roberta. I was telling you the other day when I was looking at this data, I'm like, this is so different from last year. So we're in a position where it is retention by necessity, not retention by choice. What we're seeing, what I mean by that is you look at the data here compared to last year, the number of people who say they're uncertain about their future with their employer is tremendously higher, about double. But the number of people who are planning to quit their jobs is not as high. Is it because they love their jobs? Probably not. Is it because they don't think there are other opportunities available? Probably so. So we're in this weird phase right now where there are people who are sort of holding on to their jobs because they feel they have to, because they feel like it's a steadiness in a world of unsteadiness. But overall, this tells me when I look at this that there's an opportunity for us. This group over here on the right side, there are swing voters. How do we get them from unsure to excited? How do we get them from unsure to I want to stay at this organization? And I think one of the ways we can do that, Roberta, is probably through learning, if I had to guess.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's look at this next one. This is the one I want to get your take on this. So we were talking about some of the data that stood out to us. This is one of the things that I think was really interesting to look at from an age or generation perspective. What's the first thing that stood out to you when you started digging into this data?
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing is that everybody's worried about, across the board, with an average of 51% across ages, even boomers. But what's obvious is that younger age groups are even more worried. That there were 64% of younger employees, 18 to 28, are worried about the future of work looks like due to AI and other disruptions. But what I thought was also interesting in looking at the data was that there's this worry and concern, and only 23% of employees overall agree that they are confident their employers can develop their skills, which is, again, higher. This is strangely higher for younger employees, and that level of confidence gets progressively less with age and experience. So I thought there were a couple of things that stood out to me.
Well, we'll start like pulling all these different things. Roberta, one of the ones that stood out to me a couple of years ago, and it may tie in and correlate what you're talking about there on the younger workers having more confidence, is when we ask someone who's new to their career, hey, who owns your growth? Who owns your development? Who's in charge of that? They think their manager has a lot of culpability or responsibility. They think their training department or even their leadership at the company has some responsibility. They have some, but not as much as the others. But the more experience or more age someone has, the more they start saying, that's on me. No one's going to do that for me. No one's going to grow me. Like if I don't take the reins, so I'm going to end up wherever they want me to go because I'm not driving or piloting my own ship, essentially. So I think that may be an interesting correlation in there. We have some of that data. I can't wait to put the report together on this because you and I are like running around trying to find all these fun things. And I think when we start hammering some of those out for the report itself, some of that will really start to come into play, and we'll see what the themes and trends are.
Yeah. And I was going to cover this later on, but I did have a sneak peek at who agrees that they have the support and resources to adapt, and it's only 16%.
Goodness. Which is again,
yeah.
So that now okay. So I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but now you know why I said we have those swing voters, the people that are kind of uncertain about their future.
Yeah.
Those are examples where they're like, I'm not sure if my company's preparing me for what's next, and I'm kind of worried about that. And I have this fear around AI, as we're seeing here. Those sorts of things are indicators that training isn't just about building that skill for tomorrow for them to do their job or their task, but for this long term. I feel like I have a buffer to protect me from whatever shifts and changes. I'll be able to adapt and change along with it. So when it comes to the actual training and things we're doing around that, here's one of the things we see. So in the research, we asked about preferences for different types of learning, what modalities, how do you want to learn to build a new skill? One of the things that stuck out to me is we asked people, are you interested in things like simulation and stuff like that, or virtual reality? So there was like general, yes, sure. But when we asked them, do you want to try or test out or build a new skill in a safe space before you do it on the job? There's overwhelming numbers of people that are like, yes, I would love to do that. And so for me, the takeaway is let's not focus on what we call it. Do we call it a curriculum or a course? Do we call it a training class or is it a learning experience? Do we call it listen, focus on the outcome. The outcome in this case, as an example, let's let people try and practice and experience before we make them do the skill on their job, period. And so, Roberta, you're going to talk about some of the other blockers and barriers to this later on, but that's one of the things
Yeah.
we find over and over is I'm taught something in a class and it seems really great. And then it's 3 weeks before I have a chance to do that. And by that time, I've forgotten most of what I learned because I had a chance to put my hands on it and get to work in that. So really good call out there as an opportunity to make the most of your investments in learning to give people a chance to actually try it out and test it out. One of the other stats that I think is compelling is when we look at employee data around one of the demographics we always gather data on, if you've seen our research before, is employee belonging. And we measure that as do you feel accepted, respected, and appreciated in your job? When we have employees in the data who are high belonging, they say yes to those questions. And those people are twice as confident in their employer's understanding of what their skills and their abilities are. Roberta, put yourself in the shoes of that low belonging employee for a second. I don't feel accepted, don't feel like respected or appreciated, right? I don't feel like I have confidence that my employer even knows what I'm going to do. You have to imagine they're probably in that bucket of people like, I'm not sure if I'm going to stay here long term or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a tough place to be. So if you want this, if you want people that are high belonging, we got to work through those pieces there, get your managers involved, let them play a role in this. But when we are trying to understand what people can bring to the table, they want us to see them not just for what they do now, but for their long-term value, their long-term potential overall. That's come up a couple times, I think, in other conversations here at the event. But people want to see us to see that potential in them. And if we don't see that, we're missing a chance to really bring out the very best that they have to offer. And speaking of the best they have to offer, one of the things that is mostly concerning in the data. We asked about people's conversations they're having with their manager. Has your manager talked to you about your skills, your career paths? Are they helping you along the journey? And women were 15% less likely than men to say that they're having those conversations. They're actually being prepared in those conversations with their leaders. And Roberta, I'd love to, if you have any thoughts on that, what do you think might be causing this or contributing to that? And maybe what are the repercussions if an employer is not leaning in and making sure these women have that sort of vision for their future?
Good question. Thanks, Ben. I think it's the age old, women are less likely to broach the topic, demand, ask, advocate for themselves in the workplace, less likely to feel comfortable with conversations where they feel like they're asking for or demanding something for themselves. It's just not a place a lot of women feel very comfortable. Communication styles as well. So that would be a question then for management in how they're supporting women in the workplace and their communication styles.
I think that first piece is where my mind goes, is about the maybe less like to advocate for themselves. There's a lot of research that shows that. But even the side of, you know what, sometimes managers don't always know how to talk to someone about those things. And they may struggle with that. I went back to a stat a friend of mine shared with me a while back. She said they were looking at some data and they said, interestingly enough, they had pay equity issues in their company. But when a manager had a daughter, when they had a daughter, those pay equity issues started to go away. And it's like suddenly you can identify with someone else and they start to they feel that empathy in a different sort of way when they suddenly can identify with that person is someone else's daughter. And what I want them to, my own daughter to be treated differently, probably not. And so that whether consciously or unconsciously, it starts to level out. So for all of you out there listening, one of the takeaways here for you is think about your leaders, how they're engaging, and make sure that it's equitable across the board. Otherwise, you end up with women struggling to get promoted, struggling to see a future, struggling to stick around. And you may want that, you may be advocating for that, but at that manager level is where it can either succeed wildly or break down completely. And so we've got to make sure we're enabling them with the tools to have those conversations. I'm going to transition here and let you take over and talk about the AI piece, but I'm thinking about
Right.
the data on the human skills that really matter in this AI-driven world right now: empathy, compassion, the ability to identify with someone else's needs or challenges and be able to meet those somehow or acknowledge those. AI can't do that, but humans really can. So one of the things we asked about in the data was AI coaching, and I want to kick that over to you to talk about some of the findings there.
Thanks, Ben. It was very interesting because I wanted to look in the data at how people see AI coaching versus human coaching. And so firstly, you can see on the screen, the number one reason employers would use an AI coach was it's flexible, it's available whenever people need it, followed by time saved, as AI use should do, and personalization. But people also stated that overall, 71% would like to learn from and connect with a human mentor or coach at work. This was even higher for younger age groups, which is not surprising, but still hovered at around 70% for older age groups. So regardless of age, human to human learning, coaching, mentoring was really highly valued, slightly more in the younger ages as they enter the workforce, and still stable for others. So what does human to human, which I'm calling H to H, happening, what does that look like in the workplace today? So the majority currently connect with a mentor or coach based on recommendations, peer matching, internal programs. There's not quite 30% use of technology at work to help with coaching, mentor matching. And a full 22% do not have access to mentors at all, overwhelmingly. Most of them also know that they're responsible for their own development. That was at about 73%. And only 16% strongly agreed that they have the support and resources to adapt to changing work conditions. So there's such a contrast in the data. It was interesting.
So one of the ones for me, we didn't put it in the stats right here, but it aligns with that human connection and whether there's trust there. When we look in the data, we asked a question about, do you as an employee feel like you are equipped and ready to respond to changing situations? Are you adaptable, essentially? Well, is your manager adaptable? Well, is your team around you adaptable? And what we find is, whether it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people are like, I'm better at everything than I really am. People generally, I'm pretty good at this, but the team around me, not so much. And when you put yourself in their shoes, if you look around you right now and think about the people that work at your company, everybody out there listening to my voice, if you think that the people that immediately are in your circle at work are not very adaptable to change, that doesn't create a high level of trust. You don't think that they got your back when things get tough, when things get sticky. You don't trust that they're going to be able to adapt and support you and support the needs of the company as they're trying to accomplish things. And so that creates a really tough spot. I love, though, your twist on that here, Roberta, where you're saying people really want a mentor, a connection. They want that human piece. Even AI is all the rage, but they want the human piece that matters so much.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't replace. AI's there, fabulous. Let's use it. Let's learn from it. Let it make my job easier, which is great, right? That's what we want people to use AI for, to save time looking for content, to align with learning, like how people like to learn, what they need to learn. But give me that mentor, because overwhelmingly, I want to learn from the people with experience, subject matter experts in the workplace.
Yes. So Copilot's great. I want a human Copilot over here guiding me along the way. That's what I'm taking
exactly.
Away. Okay.
Exactly.
Then you also, one of the things that you were digging into were some of the challenges, the barriers, the blockers when it comes to what's happening in learning. We would hope that people are like, nothing gets in my way. It's all great and rosy, but apparently not.
No, there are a lot of things across the board, and some things that really made me had me scratching my head. So lack of time for training came up as number one for what was impeding development. 27% of people say searching and finding the training they need is a problem, which is really interesting. And we need to look at the technology use data. The second point was 24% said training only helps with their current position, not future skills or jobs. So that sort of feeds into that worry that everybody has about the future of work and what works looks like with AI and other disruptions. And then what I found quite shocking as well is that 21% said that training content isn't relevant at all to my job. So that had me thinking about like, what is that? Is that strategic misalignment? Is that off the shelf content that's commoditized? Is that AI generated content? So as a next step, we need to dig into where does this come from?
Well, I was thinking between number 1 and number 3 here, sort of like a connection in my head that I made was right now, it's easy to get an answer to any question. Even questions no one's ever asked, you can get an answer to that with an AI tool. And so we're really in this, I hear it put, we're in information rich, but knowledge poor, I think is how it is. Like I can get the answer to anything, lots of information, but is it true knowledge? Is it going to help me advance? Is it going to help me succeed? Or is it just more noise, right? All the research around work slop and people just creating tons of junk content with AI because it's easy to use that as a proxy for real work, even if it's just busy work and it's actually draining productivity, not increasing it. So I thought that one. The other part though, that I thought was, that I went back to was a chance to speak with Mike Trusty. He may still be. I haven't talked to him in a while. Mike Trusty, when I interviewed him, was the head of learning for Fannie Mae. And one of the things he told me is when he thinks about what it looks like when an employee logs into their learning system, he said, what you see there as an employee should indicate to you where we are going as an organization. If you could log into that and I could swap the logo out on top and this could be any other company, then I am failing in my job as a leader to cast a vision and to show what path we are on. So you should log in there and see these skills matter to the organization. This is where we're going as a business, not just, generic content that could be anywhere. And to me, that story he was telling there really connected with the vision piece overall, but also that relevancy, as you were talking about, Roberta, to make someone feel like I'm on the right path because how do I know? Because it's put in front of me by my leaders who have told me this is the path we're on as an organization and as a group of people. So that's one of the things that stuck out to me.
Yep. Interesting. No, the correlation between loss of time and having to wade through AI slop and commoditized content, right? So,
oh goodness, we could spend a long time on that one too, probably. Some interesting things that I'm seeing. Talking to a leader the other day, it's like we accidentally hired someone and we've now realized that they used AI to cheat the interview because they can't do the job that we've hired them to do, and they could do all the interview stuff. Once they got past the virtual interview, the person's never in person. They'll do any of the stuff they required of them. So wacky times we're in. Okay, so some takeaways for all of you. I know that Christopher and George want to chime in and share some things. They want to wrap up with some prizes and good giveaways, things like that. Takeaways from me and from Roberta here. Number 1, I want you to focus on the outcomes you're trying to accomplish. It's really easy to think about this many people participated in a course or piece of content last year. We had this many downloads of a learning resource. Think about those sorts of activity numbers. They're not bad, but if you stop there, you're missing a chance to see the bigger impact. Think about the outcomes that you're actually trying to achieve. AI, we talked about it just now. I didn't mean to, but it's giving us opportunities. It's giving us challenges. It's up to us to sort of navigate those things. It's not going to be all one or all the other, regardless of what the headlines say. Today's headline says it's going to kill us. Tomorrow's headline says it's going to save us. It's really somewhere in the middle, like always. I said earlier, but learning is the buffer people need for disruption. When you look at the data like Roberta and I have shared around people's concerns, their fears, their worries, you see that shift and change from I'm worried to not worried so much when you see people say, my company's developing me well. So if you are developing your people, you are helping them do their work now, but you're also giving them a hedge against that disruption that they're worried about. They're seeing all the same headlines we are. They're worried about those things. All right, Roberta, talk about the human side of this and some of the other takeaways there.
Yeah, again, related to the AI, people recognize its value. People want to use it at work. People understand it saves them time and can potentially, if it works well, help them to find the content they need. But human to human is vital. 71% of people want to be connected with a mentor or coach in the workplace. That's not a small number. So like really look at what are the technologies that you have in place to help connect employees with the kind of mentorship or coaching that they want and need. And I put in this last bullet as there's the good and bad news. There's a lot of room to improve. There's probably a piece around strategic alignment up front when it comes to training, that, looking at training content relevancy or context, or cleaning up the systems, or looking at if there's some AI generated stuff that's coming through that's diluting the quality of the content, if you've got subject matter expert content in there as well. How are your technologies helping people to save time? And we talked about connecting people. And then the one thing that also stood out was that training for future skills is still a sticking point that L&D needs to address. Doing a course on AI isn't going to solve that problem in the workplace. So really looking at what that means for your organization and how you're supporting people for the future workplace.
Lots of takeaways, lots of insights, as you've all heard, and we're just scratching the surface of this research. So we'll be diving into this more. Watch for a report. We'll make sure to send it out to everyone who's registered for the live stream. So if you have not registered, please take a minute. You can look at the banner at the bottom of the screen now. Use that short link. It'll take you 30 seconds to sign up, and we'll make sure to send this report to you so you can check this out. You'll also get other details about other streams we're doing in and around talent, HR, learning, and so on. So we'd love to have you participate in these with us in the future. For all of you who hung out so far, thank you again for joining us. I want to make sure and let you know, if you ever want to see this research and other content we're putting together, you can find that at lhra.io/access. You can get into our database. You can see our research. You can see all these things we're publishing, the reports from over the last year and into next year and beyond. We love sharing with all of you, as you can tell in this session today, trying to help you with practical insights, helpful takeaways, and help you understand what's new, what's changing, and how you can stay in front of it to serve your people and serve the business. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Roberta, for joining me. We're going to pass you back over to Christopher and George to wrap up the session.
All right. There we go. We're in the home stretch, George.
Yeah. This is a lot. So I'm over here taking notes, and in this chat. Thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody that's been in the chat today.
This has been a blast.
It's been a blast with some of the feedback and comments. A few things, Christopher, that stood out to me. Obviously, for me, my mindset when it comes to anything in a business function, workforce, workplace, I always just think about the people naturally. As a former entrepreneur or continuing entrepreneur, but having retail stores, I hear about people and how they feel and how they're impacted by everything that we do as an organization. And one of the most important things to me that kind of stood out in the beginning, obviously, was the belonging portion. Some of those high belonging, like twice as confident in their employer's understanding of their skills and abilities. And when I think about some of these things, Christopher, I think about the value of connection. When we talked about earlier, what's one thing that AI cannot replace? It's that connection, right? AI is not going to be connecting me as much as my leader is. It's important for Christopher. If you're my leader, Christopher is my leader, then it's important for him to know me and to know my abilities and my skills to help direct me, guide me, lead me. Bring in AI and say, hey, George, this is something that you could use AI in. But I think there's just that vulnerability within that. And then the other piece, just because I want to dig back into this and have a conversation with Roberta, but to see that women are 15% less likely to have that talk about skills and career paths, I won't say that it shocks me, but the impact of the why. Like I would love to dig into that. I know some of the ladies here and Maria specifically answered the question. Obviously, what managers cannot define or measure the success of one-on-one meetings to discuss those skills and the impact there. What was some of your key takeaways?
Well, and I think
you want to chime in
so.
on that?
I'm gonna jump off what you said, and then there's a key takeaway that I had on this, and it's one of those things where AI actually can be a really good tool to help with some of this stuff, because it can help surface some of these insights. It can help you reframe, like, hey, I'm talking to this person. Like, don't ask it what to say, but maybe say, here's what I'm trying to communicate. Here's what I know about this person. How might I want to frame this differently so that it resonates with them? Or they reacted this way. Help me think through what might have driven that reaction. Like, it can help you be more empathetic. It can help you be more understanding, but you have to take that kind of path with it. And if you're just looking to AI to give you the answer, it won't work. And I saw somebody in the back or earlier say, don't use it for performance reviews. And it's like, well, my thing with that is it depends. No, you don't want AI delivering a performance review. You want to connect with your manager. Can AI help you take all that stuff in your head that you know about the person you're managing and help you structure, like, how do I communicate that to them? You know, what should I be careful of so that it doesn't come across the wrong way? Like, AI can help with that, but you can't hand it over. In terms of this last session, the thing that really stood out to me is it looks bad, right? Like, the data looks bad. It's like engagement's down. People aren't really sure if they want to stick around. You know, there's uncertain of the future. The economics of things is rough. And it's true. We can't deny that as a reality. But I think that also creates tremendous opportunity, because I work with a ton of organizations that go, so let's not be that. Let's be different. And it becomes their competitive edge. Because in a world where it is grim, when you're the one that goes, no, we're leaning into people. No, we're leaning into critical thinking and human connection. We're going to invest when everybody else says, just take what you can out of people, forget them. You know, you'll just replace them with an age. Like, when you're not doing that, you stand out like a sun in a dark place. And I think that's something that everybody can walk away from is, you know, you actually can use this to your advantage right now, and not to take advantage of it, but to really stand out in a time, because the times are going to change. We saw it with COVID. Things flipped, and then it was in the employees' favor. And do you really want to fall into that territory and everybody just flees? Well, no, like, you got to think more long-term. And I think that's something you can take from some of these grim statistics and go, all right, well, we know that's where we are, so let's be different.
Yeah. So true. So true. I think we got one more video live.
We do, and then we can debrief on that, and then we'll close it up.
Let's jump into that, and then we got the winners coming up.
Yeah, that's right. Don't go anywhere, folks, because there's giveaways and all that good stuff.
Yep. All right, so we got 9 minutes to wrap this up. Let's shoot this video. We'll stay on the screen and watch as well.
We're here at DevLearn Live. We're having conversations with people in Vegas all around learning, what's happening, the challenges there. I'm so excited to be here with Dave. We're going to be talking about some of the things that they're helping people solve when it comes to Unboxed. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Ben.
Glad to meet you. Yeah, I met you 2 minutes ago. So this is a long friendship we have here. Tell me about some of the problems that people are coming to you trying to solve right now.
Wow, you know, the number one problem I'm hearing is how to make sense of AI. AI is sprayed on everything in this entire,
yes.
all the booths here.
True story.
And what everyone's trying to do is, what decisions do I make about it? What's right for us? What's not? What will scale? And I think a big part of what we're seeing is that there's so many different tools that seem to do the same things, but there's one common thread, which is you have to integrate your knowledge, the information you have today in your company. You have to integrate great coaching, and you have to integrate great practice. And if a company can do all of those things, or if an organization can do those things, they're going to win. So I think everyone's trying to make sense of that right now.
I did not expect to get the How to Win with AI playbook in this 1 minute session with you. So great. Thank you for saying yes to joining me for this. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming up.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to the Chief AI Officer on this platform, Christopher. What's your take on that? I love everybody's take and perspective, because it's always different. It's challenging, encouraging, and sometimes it's like head scratching. What was your take there?
So what I really liked about it, and this is something that, I spend, I don't know how many hours every day digging into AI, working on these models, working with companies, building, I'm in the heart of this. And even I go, if you ask me what I thought last week, it's going to be different today because this has changed, or these models have rolled this out, or we just discovered this in some latest research on agents. And I think that should be, it's unsettling, I think, for a lot of people, because it's uncomfortable. But I think in some ways it's also encouraging, because we're all learning together right now. And over the last year, I don't know how many companies have, recruited me for a chief AI officer. And as I get into it, it's always like, hey, we're all discovering this. A lot of people are going, give us the answers. And it's like, well, there's not answers yet. We're discovering those answers, and it's messy right now, and we're working through it. And I think that's one of the things that I loved about that clip, is it's like, right now we're doing it. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to this going, gosh, I just don't know where we're going this year, or what we're doing. Neither does anybody else. Neither does anybody else. But in some ways, we're learning things, and we can learn from each other and grow. And I think, if anything, that's a great opportunity for us to come together. And that's the kind of thing that really encourages me about the disruptive state we're in right now.
Yeah. And I'll say this, listen to the research that Roberta and Ben shared, and all the comments and conversations from Al and Julia starting earlier today, with Sean and Phil. So much, you know, I want to say inspiration, and I want to say also, like, there's challenges. We're going to have some things to challenge us ahead, and we're going to have to be able to really consider what it takes as an organization to really strive or advance when it comes to the learning strategies. Three things that I'm going to say, and we can wrap up and you can give your closing. But when I think about what are three things from gathering everything that I have today, three things that I would say, and like, don't be lame. I'll make this lame because I know three of them. I'll come up with something at the end. But like learner experience and accessibility is a key. Like, having a strong strategy to prioritize is so important, because for me, and Roberta said, like, and there's several people in the chat, is like, sometimes like learning is not even part of the strategy or the business strategy. It's like a program of its own, and it's something that we may get to, or if we have time, depending on how busy like, this has to be a strategy within your program and your organization, to make sure that it is also a priority for your people to learn, to be able to be skilled, reskilled, cross-skilled, upskilled, whatever, near skilled, throw all the skills in there, right? And consider factors like personalization, consider factors like how we deliver, what's the format, in-person, digital, microlearning, accessibility for all different types of roles, right? And then I think about alignment with your business objectives. How does this align? This is not a standalone initiative. This is something that we're going to do that's going to align with who we are and what we do as an organization. So there's clarity around the learning connects of the organization, whether it's goals, metrics, and performing outcomes, and then measure. And I think it was, I don't want to say who said it. I think it was Phil that says, if you don't define it, you can't measure it, right? And so measurement is a huge thing. The agility and the continuous learning improvement is a key. And then overall, to don't be lame acronym to end the day, encouragement. Like, I'm encouraged as much, because there could be the opposite. We could, as an organization, be providing learning and have all these different things laid out, and people don't have a desire for it. The fact that there is a desire and a hunger for it shows something. And we see that across all our other research, where if it's not pay, I want you to grow and develop me. There's the desire there, Christopher. Anything that you want to end with before we wrap up with the last couple of slides?
Sure. So the three things that come to mind for me that I'll add that I don't think that pair well with yours, rather than just go, I agree with everything you just said, George. One is, AI is the most powerful amplifier. I say this all the time. AI is the most powerful amplifier we have ever seen in human history. It amplifies everything it touches. It doesn't create anything new. It just turns the volume up. And that can be really good, or it can be really bad. Because if you apply it in the wrong ways, it will amplify your problems to levels you've never seen, and it'll do it faster than you've ever done it before. But if you use it the right way, it'll have the same effect. And so being surgical about how you do it and the way you apply it is so important right now. The other thing, a second one that came to mind right now, is a lot of things people are trying to do with AI right now is skip the hard work. Skip the difficult, challenging stuff. Like, how do we use AI to shortcut this? And going back to the amplify, like, you do not want to shortcut the hard work, the difficult. Like, don't use this to skip over how do we think about the right problem. Take the time on that, and then use AI to free you up to focus more time on that. And I think that's where I see a lot of flip-flop. And I know I'm doing the 6-7, but that's not what I'm meaning to do. It's the whole idea that, you do
1338. That's all I know.
Is that you don't want to skip the hard work, and you can't. You can't skip the hard work. You need to focus on that and let AI do that, help you with that. And then, the third one that I think is really important with all the noise, and there's lots of bad stuff and we're seeing it everywhere. But what we don't see enough of, and we don't talk enough about, and one of the things I really liked about some of the sessions today, is AI also is empowering things that were literally impossible before. That we didn't have the capability, the scalability, like there were things we just could not do that AI is enabling. And so, yes, it can do really terrible things, but it also can do wonderful things. And I think we just really need to think about that. Like, what are the things that you go, what would we do if we could do anything? Because AI might be able to enable you to do that. So those were my three. And yes, Aaron, I do have a bunch of kids in grade school. I have 8 kids between the ages of 1 and 14. So the 6, 7 is very much a well-known meme in our house. And me doing it on the live stream might just kill it for the kids. They might not ever want to do it again because Dad did it.
Listen, as we all have grown up, we all had numbers. Like some of us was like, I can't even say the 369 and then the 1738. Every generation has a few numbers. Like, if you're in the 80s, then maybe you had ABCs with the Jacksons, whatever it may be. We all have something. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much. We're getting off subject. It's going to be an end. The best moments are going to be the last 2 minutes talking about 6, 7.
That's right.
That we've had. Listen, if you want more information or more of our research in the future, make sure you visit. I'm laughing at the chat right now. This is great. All of our research is published for free at lhra.io/access. Be able to get all the research there, as well as the research that Ben mentioned earlier today. I do want to do a quick reminder. I'm going to flash these real quickly. You can pause them. You can take a picture of them, but there are QR codes. This QR code is for Go1, one of our great event partners. We want to thank them so much for partnering with us as well. Then we also have WeLearn. If you missed the WeLearn QR code that's above me right now, this QR code is going to give you a strategy scorecard for your organization to be able to gain. It's great information there, so you can go back into the this live feed. It's going to stay on the platform, YouTube, LinkedIn. It's going to be there as well on demand for you as well for that. And then also ETU is the new skill well. So make sure you check them out. And we want to say again, thank everybody. Now the fun part is all the giveaways, and so we have a bunch of books we're going to be sending out to these lucky, lovely winners. Thank you all for being so much in the chat. There are so many different people we wanted to get to, but we're going to send a copy of either Champion Your Purpose, my book, or Ben's book, Talent Scarcity. Is going to have some other information in there on the shrinking workforce and some all goodies and stuff. So make sure you email events@lhra.io. Subject, I won Jill. Jill's going to take care of everybody that has their name on this list. So make sure you do that.
Congratulations to the winners.
Congratulations to all our winners. And as always, once again, here on the screen is your SHRM code and your HRCI program code for all of those who are needing that as well. And I would not, cannot end the stream without giving another shout out to WeLearn, Skillwell, formerly known as ETU, and Go1 for being incredible event partners on this live stream. Thank you to the hundreds across several different LinkedIns. Thank you to all those people who have chimed in the chat, shared and liked, loved, commented, all those great things. And then Christopher, my friend, thank you for this lovely live stream. It's the first of many. I can't wait for some of the exciting things that we have planned for 2026 as we continue.
Yeah, this is just the beginning, right? This is just the beginning.
Just the beginning of some of our live streams. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, make sure you are checking in with yourself. Take care of yourself. As always, for Lighthouse, we're here to inspire, connect, and educate, and love those who love us and love those who don't love us. We're here. Right. But as always, Christopher, my friend, any last words?
I don't think so. I think just be encouraged. It's been a rough year. I think we can all acknowledge it's been a rough 2025, but we are coming into the home stretch, and all this great stuff is a great way to start 2026 on a fresh foot because there's a bright future ahead. There really is. And I think we can all look towards that.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, champion your mindset, champion your purpose. Take care. 3, 2.
We want to thank all of you so much for joining us on the live stream.
For more information, make sure you visit. That was really good. Here we go. For more information, 3, 2. And for more information, make sure you visit our website at lhra.io.
Okay, just for editor purpose, can we just try the whole thing? Thanks for joining, and for more information, go ahead. I'm rolling.
Thank you so much for joining us for our live stream today.
And for more information, make sure you join lhra.io for more information.
For more information?
For more information, for more information. Here, last try. We got it now. I'm getting hungry. Can you tell?
Do you want to start this one off?
No, because it's you want to do the for more information part?
I will sure do that.
All right, here we go. 3, 2. Thank you for joining this live stream.
We appreciate all.
Ooh.
This is when Lucas is like, I just want to leave here.
Oh, you making me sweat.
If his stuff wasn't set up, he'd just walk out.
All right, here we go. We want to thank everybody for joining us today on this live stream.
For more information, you can find our website at lhra.io.
Nice.